The girl possessed the ability to communicate with ghosts. Therefore, her existence sparked a heated discussion among the ghosts. As long as they relentlessly pursued the female protagonist, she would grant their small wishes. At 5 years old, she could already see ghosts. But what was even more incomprehensible to her was the dream she had been having for 20 consecutive years. In the dream, from the perspective of a strange woman, she experienced all sorts of deaths, waking up from the dream after each one. But this time, she didn't wake up, and she could clearly feel the other person looking at her. After a painful struggle, she finally woke up, but this also gave her an ominous premonition. So, as a top actress, while she was rehearsing a scene, she was hit by a chandelier from above. As she was on the verge of death, she saw a ghost floating in the air, smiling with her own face. She never would have thought that after being tormented by ghosts her whole life, she would now die because of one. When she woke up again, she had become the woman she always saw in her dreams. When the original owner's nominal brother, Robbie, came in, she thought she was dreaming again. She was already annoyed just seeing him. After all, in her countless dreams, it was because of him, the extreme Duke, and now he was irritably ordering her around. Then she could do something she had always wanted to do. So when he impatiently turned his back, Camilla leaped up and landed a heavy blow on his forehead. It turned out that after their mother remarried the Duke, although Robbie had some talent in magic, he was far from being a match for the outstanding eldest son, Ludby. As his inferiority complex grew, he even plotted an assassination. Thus, his neglected biological sister became the target of his manipulation. Every time she saw Camilla die because of his schemes, she would get very angry. She had long wanted to punch this guy in the face, but faced with his anger, the girl immediately switched on her acting skills. She pitifully said she wasn't fully awake yet and thought she was dreaming. What could her brother say? After all, his sister usually put up with the maids in the house without a word. She definitely didn't hit him on purpose. It hurt a little, but it was more important to hurry to breakfast. But Camilla also realized something was wrong. Before, she couldn't act on her own will. Could it be related to the last ghost she saw? If she couldn't wake up from this dream, she would be done for. After all, if she let the story continue as it was, there was only a dead end. The Duke, with a cold expression, was displeased that they were late. Without waiting for Robbie to explain, the girl had already started to apologize. Because I had some trouble sleeping last night, I woke up late this morning. The man was puzzled. He glanced at her. She never used to speak during meals. Why was she so strange today? As breakfast was served, Camilla quickly cut the meat and passed it to the Duke. To make up for delaying breakfast, the man didn't suspect anything. He picked up a piece of meat and put it in his mouth. Then, his face contorted in pain as if he had eaten shit. At the perfect moment, the girl seemed to have just realized, shooting up and saying, "Father, wait. Stop. Don't eat it. I'm so sorry. Please, have my portion instead." The Duke's face was grim. "It seems this isn't the first time you've eaten something like this." At this moment, the maidservant at the side was already trembling like a sieve. Camilla's idea was simple. Now that she could act on her own, she would no longer tolerate the staff playing pranks on her with her food. She also had to let her unobservant family members know why she always ate so little. As expected, the Duke did not disappoint. He immediately ordered the punishment of those who dared to tarnish their family's name. Not only were the kitchen maids fired, but they were also given no severance pay. He then instructed the kitchen to pay more attention to the princess's food since she always left leftovers. The head chef came again, and with him came a ghost. The old man was constantly berating the head chef from the side, looking for all the world like he was disappointed in his failed protege. "How many times have I told you? When you cook, you must prioritize the person eating it. Camilla doesn't like apples. In this cake, use one less piece of dried tangerine peel. To think I took you as my apprentice. You piece of trash in the culinary world. Don't you think so too?" Camilla was confused. These eyes weren't hers. But why could she see ghosts here too? Meanwhile, at Peblo Academy, two people were discussing Camilla. Camilla is Petro's shadow, and she doesn't let other women get close to him at parties, one of them said as they walked. His expression suddenly changed. The other person, not understanding why, was pushed away. At this moment, he still didn't know who was in front of him. The person before him was the infamous eldest son of the separate ducal family, one of the three great ducal families, Election Sepra. The first time the head chef tasted his master's cooking, it was like a ray of artistic light illuminating his heart. From then on, he studied hard under his master. Among them, the apple pie can be called my masterpiece. However, in reality, the princess didn't eat a single bite. The food was returned untouched. The apple pie was once again presented to the princess. At this time, the head chef was still thinking, "You should be grateful that you get to eat my cooking." Beside him, his master was fuming and stamping his feet, able only to worry anxiously from the side. Camilla glanced at the head chef. She didn't mind his rude behavior. She was more concerned about the noisy ghost beside him. She picked up her knife and fork and began to taste it. After one bite, she put down her fork. She said it wasn't good and she didn't want to eat it. The head chef was shocked, unable to accept it. Isn't the most basic principle of cooking to understand the preferences of the person who will be eating? I don't like apples, and if no one likes to eat it, it's the same as garbage. After the head chef left, Camilla looked at the ghost beside her. "Why haven't you left yet?" The ghost was very surprised that she could actually see him, but Camilla had already pulled the covers over her head, pretending to sleep. The ghost hurried off to report this. Two ghostly heads peeked in furtively. Sol, led by the former butler of the ducal house, looked very surprised. The butler was very skeptical, unable to believe the young lady could really see them. The two ghosts argued. To prove their theory, they started watching Camilla every day. Her reputation used to be terrible. No one was willing to believe her. Considering her usual words and actions, it wasn't entirely incomprehensible. No, she had to change people's opinion of her, as the female protagonist was constantly thinking about how to change her reputation. A ghost was making faces behind her, while the two of them kept interfering with her. This was intolerable. She was about to go crazy from their constant bickering, still debating whether she could see them. Although she originally planned to pretend she couldn't see them, she finally admitted she could, but said she wouldn't help them resolve their regrets or anything. She felt helpless facing these two ghosts. If she didn't do something, she might become a ghost herself. Just as the two were celebrating that someone could finally see them, they noticed Camilla's dejected expression. How could she find out what the Duke likes? Well, it just so happened that this one was the former butler here, and this one was the former head chef. These are things they knew well and could give the female protagonist some advice on. This was, of course, the best possible outcome. Camilla's eyes lit up, feeling that life was full of hope. The Duke had just come out for a walk when he spotted Camilla in the park. At this moment, the Duke had a bad feeling. The last time she came here, the flowers had suffered. The baby's breath must not be dug up. The Duke rushed over in a single bound, grabbing her shoulder and causing her flowers to fall. Camilla looked at the Duke with a wronged expression, stating that she was just picking flowers and not doing anything else. The Duke found it incredible. She had completely changed from her former self. She smiled at the Duke, explaining that she just wanted to pick flowers to decorate the Duke's room. Seeing Camilla's bright smile and hearing her gently call him father, the Duke could hardly believe his eyes. He didn't know that she was secretly delighted, though she didn't show it on her face. The Duke would never have guessed her true purpose. The Duke relented, agreeing to let Camilla pick flowers and put them in his room. The reason the Duke cared so much about these flowers was because his late wife had loved them very much. The ghosts really did know the Duke well. The idea they gave her this time was very effective, and the Duke's expression was quite interesting, not as stern as before. Although she couldn't change his mind overnight, the female protagonist wouldn't give up. With renewed fighting spirit, the female protagonist began her next phase. Meanwhile, in the Duke's office, the ducal family's aide, Jete, was reporting on his work. The aide chattered on about matters, handing over a document. But at this moment, the Duke seemed to hear nothing, his gaze fixed on the baby's breath beside him. Suddenly, the Duke spoke, but he asked a question completely unrelated to the work matters. The aide was stunned. He looked at the Duke, who was asking with a serious face about Camilla's recent situation. The uninformed Jete broke out in a cold sweat. Just then, there was a knock on the door. It was the ducal family's butler, Rub, bringing a meal. The Duke began to eat. He felt it was strange, because the butler kept staring at him today. After the food entered his mouth, the Duke was stunned. This flavor belonged to the former head chef, the chef who had watched him grow up. When the Duke asked in surprise when Gerard had become capable of making this flavor, he heard a completely different answer. It was actually made by the young lady. The Duke fell into deep thought. After tasting it, Gerard was also amazed by its flavor. The texture was exactly the same as his master's. Seeing his disbelieving face, Camilla was very pleased. And all of this was because she had an expert guiding her. With the help of the former head chef, Pello, she was naturally able to replicate the old flavor. At this point, the female protagonist smugly brought up the bet between them. If he lost, then he would have to do anything for her. It turned out that when the female protagonist had previously mentioned cooking, he had been very dismissive, thinking she could never do it, and made this bet. The female protagonist just raised an eyebrow. The flashback ends, and the head chef, Gerard, had thoroughly lost. And all of this was within her control. She had achieved the desired effect, and she knew very well that this was all thanks to their help. In order to ensure a long-term partnership, she knew they wouldn't help her unconditionally. So she asked about their requests, in order not to return to the previous ending. They were very surprised. The female protagonist was taken aback by their reaction. Pello pointed a finger and said he only wanted to cook. The female protagonist was very confused. Was he asking her to cook and make offerings to him? Then Pello explained that he just wanted to cook a meal and had no other requests. He was already very satisfied with this. Faced with Pello's wish, the female protagonist was puzzled, but remained respectful. And the former butler's wish was surprisingly the same. Just being able to help the people of the ducal house already made him feel happy. The female protagonist was stunned. She was shocked by their simple wishes. To think there were such good people in this world. The female protagonist didn't know their true identities. Although she didn't understand their thoughts, she still respected them. From now on, the female protagonist planned to ask for their help. Just 10 days later, the female protagonist made a new dish. Gerard was almost speechless, but for the female protagonist, it wasn't very difficult, and Gerard could only admit defeat. In such a short amount of time, the female protagonist was able to achieve this color. Gerard was now deep in thought. Because of the female protagonist's familiarity with the kitchen, it was as if she had already worked in the kitchen for 10 years. Gerard really wanted to taste this dish. After tasting it, it was indeed delicious, but he couldn't replicate it. When the female protagonist asked him about it, he was too proud to admit it and just said the taste was okay. The female protagonist was very dissatisfied with his reaction. So the female protagonist proposed that if Gerard flattered her, she would tell him the recipe. The flattery the female protagonist imagined was like this. Gerard hesitated for a moment, thinking it was like this. The female protagonist expressed that she was truly shocked. Just then, the butler arrived. The female protagonist sprinkled something mysterious into it and handed it to the butler. The butler walked forward, then suddenly turned back to glare at Gerard, threateningly asking if he had any objections. Although Gerard was kneeling on the ground, how could he dare to have the slightest complaint? Rub found his reaction quite amusing. He used to have such a difficult personality, and now he was completely subdued. Things were suddenly becoming interesting. Arriving at the Duke's room, he was entertaining guests. Rub served a dish. A guest on the left smiled with satisfaction after tasting it. Someone on the right sincerely praised. The young lady's skills are truly excellent. This greatly satisfied the Duke's vanity. Hearing others praise, he felt incredibly proud. Under the guests' compliments, the Duke was still being slightly modest. The butler had long seen that the Duke was doing it on purpose. But there are always clueless people who like to dance on others' sore spots. Ignoring the Duke's ugly expression, he rambled on, saying nothing but bad things about the young lady. If you don't want to drink it, the Duke said, then don't. This guest who wanted to drink watched as his glass was snatched away, completely stunned. Dumbfounded, he still didn't know what mistake he had made. In a quiet corridor, the female protagonist was discussing cooking with Pello. Suddenly, she noticed someone in the corner. It was her brother. Having been discovered, his expression wasn't good. It turned out her brother had been secretly following her and had started to suspect her. The female protagonist was puzzled by her brother's questioning. The brother voiced his suspicions, but saw the female protagonist's indifferent look. He clenched his jaw, wanting to show concern for the female protagonist, but didn't know how to start. In the female protagonist's eyes, he looked as if he had taken the wrong medicine. Just then, the brother confessed his thoughts. The Duke won't accept us as his family just because we try hard. The brother saw his former self in the female protagonist, which is why he said such things. Even so, the female protagonist didn't actually care about these things. Seeing that her brother still hadn't reacted, the female protagonist scurried away. She stopped when her brother called out to her. All she was doing was just trying to stay alive. After saying this, she left her brother alone by the window. Family? The verbal abuse of family seemed to still echo in his ears. For the female protagonist, she wasn't worried. The next day, while drinking tea, the female protagonist was being stared at by the ghosts. She really couldn't stand it anymore. The ghost finally asked about what happened yesterday. The former butler was worried about the female protagonist's health. Even if she told them, they probably wouldn't understand. So the female protagonist decided to use her superb acting skills. The female protagonist made up a random reason, and they believed her. The female protagonist suddenly thought that perhaps the ghost could go to many places freely. They must know about the flower field incident. The female protagonist began to ask them. The so-called incident referred to when the original female protagonist was looking for her mother's keepsake. After digging up the flower field, she was condemned by everyone. That's why the Duke was so wary when he found her in the garden. And as expected, the ghost did not disappoint and found the location. That's how the female protagonist was able to find the keepsake. Before, the ghost had always thought the female protagonist was just pretending not to see them, so they never suspected her. The former butler was very direct. With a gentle face, he spoke the most hateful words, offering to help the female protagonist get revenge. The female protagonist was grateful to them, but she would handle this matter herself. It was those three people. The female protagonist already had a plan in mind. The three were summoned to the door. Unaware of their impending doom, they were still complaining. The moment they opened the door, the young lady was lying on the floor, her life status unknown. The three of them were too scared to move. One of the maids' first reaction was to close the door. Just then, the three of them noticed a letter on the floor. Inside was evidence of their evil deeds. The female protagonist, who had been pretending to be asleep, woke up looking at the three's horrified faces. The female protagonist let out a contemptuous smile like a vengeful spirit. The maid was terrified. Shouldn't the female protagonist be dead? The female protagonist wiped the blood from her mouth. Seeing her standing there alive, they realized they had been tricked. The female protagonist looked at the three of them and gave a wicked smile, stating that their scheme could never have succeeded because someone would always find out. The maid detected the threat in the female protagonist's words. The female protagonist's expression turned dark. If the three of them didn't obey her, she wouldn't mind making them disappear. The other two, seeing the female protagonist like this, were scared and trembling. At this point, the three were intimidated into willing submission. They would never dare to do evil again. The female protagonist was very satisfied with their reaction and happily ordered the three to do something. The maid was very confused, afraid of what it might be. For what the three had done to her in the past, she would make them taste their own medicine. The three of them hurriedly left to find the keepsake. They would never dare to bully the female protagonist again. As the door closed, the female protagonist breathed a sigh of relief. The two ghosts silently gathered around. The two of them were also impressed by the female protagonist's superb acting. It had startled them too. They thought it was real. But this was the female protagonist's comfort zone. After all, she was very experienced with villainous roles and had even won an award for one. Naturally, the two of them didn't understand what the female protagonist was talking about. The former butler was still very confused. The female protagonist had already found the ring, so why did she still make the three of them look for it? The female protagonist's purpose was, of course, obvious. It was an eye for an eye. To make the three of them feel the same despair the previous female protagonist had felt. Just then, the butler suddenly appeared. The three were terrified. Their deeds had been exposed. The butler told the Duke everything. Only then did the Duke realize that he had wrongly accused the female protagonist in the past. Faced with his past mistakes, the Duke decided to summon the female protagonist. The female protagonist arrived before the Duke. On the surface, the female protagonist looked calm, but inwardly, she was already wondering what the Duke wanted now. To her surprise, the Duke asked about the matter of her being wrongly accused. Why hadn't she told the Duke about all the bullying she endured? The reason she didn't tell the Duke was obvious, because even if she had, he wouldn't have believed her. The Duke's next words greatly surprised the female protagonist, because the Duke actually wanted to stand up for her. But the Duke of the past wasn't like this. He was cold and heartless. Because of what the female protagonist was doing now, the Duke had started to develop a good impression of her. But the current female protagonist was a transmigrator. The quick-witted female protagonist's acting skills came online. Faced with the Duke's questioning, she said she just wanted to solve it herself. The Duke was very angry, feeling heartbroken that the female protagonist was so sensible, not wanting to worry him even when she was wrong. Seeing the Duke so worried about her, the female protagonist was stunned. Seeing the Duke being so gentle with her, the female protagonist suddenly felt uneasy, afraid that she might not want to leave this place. After returning, the female protagonist began to study a map, preparing for her future escape. The two ghosts were very puzzled by the female protagonist's behavior. This preparation required not only the Duke's favor, but also another important person. And this important person was about to return. This person was the eldest son of the Sorb family, the female protagonist's older brother, Ludbai. A maid came to the female protagonist's room to convey the Duke's summons. The female protagonist was reading a book at the time, with the two ghosts beside her. The female protagonist's goal was finally achieved, because the Duke now frequently invited her for afternoon tea. The female protagonist got up and headed out. Unexpectedly, she ran into Robbie on the way. Robbie enthusiastically invited her to join him. She had to put on a smile, as if their relationship was very good at that moment. The female protagonist, who had just sat down, keenly noticed that the person opposite her seemed to be in a good mood, as if something had happened to make Robbie happy. Just then, the female protagonist suddenly remembered something. That day, at the Magic Academy, Robbie was to give a presentation as one of the elites. This guy was so happy his tail was about to stick up, but Robbie wouldn't be happy for long, as someone suddenly pushed the door open, interrupting the two who were chatting. It turned out that Ludby had found the rebel army's base and wiped them all out. The Duke stood up happily, even happier than when he heard about Robbie's matter. In contrast to the Duke's cheerful mood, Robbie was now feeling very down. The female lead looked at the dejected Robbie with pity. It was all just a coincidence. As the Duke happily shared his joy with others, Robbie silently got up, thinking he should leave. Seeing this, the female lead also followed him out, leaving behind the two elated individuals discussing the upcoming activities. Meanwhile, no one paid any attention to the neglected Robbie. No matter how much Robbie accomplished, it could never compare to Ludby. At this moment, only the female lead could appreciate Robbie's achievements. So that Robbie wouldn't be so disheartened, she praised him. At first, Robbie thought she was mocking him. Patting Robbie's shoulder, the female lead comforted him before leaving. After all, Robbie was also a very talented person, leaving Robbie alone with his jumbled thoughts. Meanwhile, in the young lady's room, the female lead was being gorgeously dressed up. She couldn't help but marvel at how beautiful she was. The maid continued to style the female lead, preparing her to make a dazzling entrance at the upcoming banquet for Ludby's return. While the female lead was wondering how to make a dazzling entrance, she was completely unaware that Robbie was already standing behind her. He had just arrived and was already saying discouraging things, which greatly displeased the female lead. But the female lead was no longer her old self. She admitted to her past actions and said she would still grab people by the hair like before. Hearing the female lead's fierce words, Robbie couldn't believe his ears. Joking aside, the female lead remembered Robbie's presentation. It was then that Robbie realized the female lead had remembered his presentation today all along. Robbie awkwardly turned his head away, finding his own assumptions ridiculous. The female lead muttered to herself that she had to choose her outfit carefully, while Robbie was only worried about her embarrassing herself at the banquet. Going along with Robbie's words, the female lead also raised her wrist high. Of course I will. Walking alone on the bustling streets, all the talk was about Ludby. Even though he was alone, Robbie had walked this path all by himself. Just then, some people near Robbie were discussing the results of the presentation. An uninvited guest arrived. It was Gail. This person, who always looked down on him, was actually greeting Robbie. Gail was surprised that Robbie's preparations were nearly on par. Nearby, a young lady was cheering for Gail. Gail replied happily. However, his reason for greeting Robbie was not so simple. He knew that no one from Robbie's family had come, so he came over deliberately to mock him. So what if you're an elite? Gail's real purpose was to see him suffer. But Gail had to pretend to be concerned for Robbie, while in reality, he was hitting all of Robbie's sore spots. He insinuated that no one in Robbie's family cared about him. Faced with such a situation, Robbie of course had to retaliate. He raised his hand and rested it on Gail's shoulder. He subtly reminded Gail about cheating on his thesis, causing Gail's face to turn pale. Just as Gail was about to retaliate, the crowd suddenly erupted into a commotion. A figure was seen approaching from behind. The female lead was walking over. At this moment, the female lead was lost in a memory. A long time ago, she was Ghoul and was constantly the subject of gossip. Her parents had argued over her since she was a child and didn't like her. In truth, the female lead was not her parents' biological child. Furthermore, her biological father had killed his own wife and then later committed suicide. Perhaps because their experiences were so similar, the female lead decided to help Robbie. Of course, Donna was very good too. Her former self was also unloved by others, but the female lead was able to become who she is today. Not because she became an actress. Now, it was Robbie's turn to go on stage. With Robbie on stage and the female lead in the audience, he had his strongest supporter. Those with malicious intent could only keep their mouths shut, and Robbie could freely display his talents on stage. In a flash, it was dusk. Just as the female lead was about to leave, Robbie called out to her. Seeing that the female lead had dressed up so elaborately to attend the presentation, Robbie was very confused. Although he was unhappy to see the person he dislikes, he couldn't figure her out now. When the female lead willfully stated she came just because she felt like it, Robbie was instantly speechless. Robbie had originally expected some kind words from the female lead. At this point, Robbie stopped dwelling on it and surprisingly asked the female lead to go home together. The female lead was stunned. It turned out Robbie had such a gentle side. The female lead hurried to catch up and walk alongside Robbie. She smiled happily, but Robbie didn't understand the reason for her smile. The sky had turned completely dark. The banquet at the ducal mansion had also ended. In the face of his father's praise, Ludby's expression remained indifferent. The duke gave an awkward smile and told Ludby to go and rest. On his way back, Ludby saw a puzzling scene through the window. It looked like Camilla had changed. Arriving outside the mansion, they could still hear sounds of laughter from within. The two of them conferred outside the gate. The female lead had specifically wanted to avoid an encounter. Robbie planned to show his face at the party, while the female lead intended to go back to her room. After all, she didn't want to see the person who had once killed her, Ludby. Seeing him would make the female lead recall the feeling of a blade piercing her body. While routinely picking flowers, the female lead was lost in thought. The duke was easy to read, but Ludby's thoughts were much harder to guess. In any case, the female lead's goal remained clear. That was to win the duke's favor. Just as the female lead was rushing back, someone appeared behind her and called her name. Just then, the female lead's foot tripped on something, causing her to execute a magnificent spin. She perfectly averted a fall. Who knew that the person in front of her was Ludby? He was even prepared to catch her. The two of them froze awkwardly. The female lead thought to herself that her worst fears were coming true. Even though she didn't want to face him, she had to make the best of the situation. It would be fine as long as she didn't provoke him. The female lead offered him the flowers, displaying her superb acting skills, and claimed she had picked them personally for him. After giving him the flowers, the female lead quickly made an excuse to leave. She practically ran away. When Ludby returned, he saw the butler. The butler was very confused about where the flowers in Ludby's hand came from. The nearby maids were whispering, finding the sight unbelievable. The butler offered to take the flowers, but was refused by Ludby. He wasn't even allowed to help arrange them. Ludby held the flowers, cherishing the bouquet so much that he wouldn't let anyone else touch it. When Ludby said they were from that girl, the butler was exasperated. Why was he being so hesitant to speak? As he turned and walked away, Ludby smiled happily. It was simply because the female lead had acknowledged him as Camilla's brother. Several people were gathered at the dining table for a meal. The female lead was mortified. She watched Ludby, trying to guess what he was thinking. Just then, Ludby looked at the female lead's food. He seemed to know what she had been suffering here and actually offered to switch plates with her. Of course, the female lead found this very confusing. While she was feeling indignant, the Duke asked about Robbie's presentation. Robbie was very happy. The Duke also asked about the female lead's starting school. At this, the female lead froze. It turned out she was still a student. Faced with the Duke's inquiry, the female lead broke out in a cold sweat. Going to school meant facing new challenges, and it was possible these two would be involved. While the female lead was still troubled, the Duke brought up the matter of tea and flowers, asking the female lead about replacing the flowers in his office. Robbie saw the key point. Hadn't Camilla noticed that the Duke had invited her for chocolate tea? He looked at the female lead's uncomprehending expression. Robbie, however, was secretly happy for Camilla because the Duke was starting to pay attention to her. When he came to his senses, but he wondered why he was so concerned about the female lead. In the office, two people were busy with something. Ludby was compiling a list of afternoon teas that the female lead enjoyed. How did the Duke handle those two servants? Faced with Ludby's inquiry, the Duke fell silent for a moment. They would be dismissed. It failed again. The Duke did not blame Ludby. After all, a deity isn't so easy to find. In this world, there are three great family crests. The Sorb family's crest of the white tiger, and the Sepra family's crest of the wolf. The Waytu is the crest of the Jebelin family. The previous Duke of the Sorb family died mysteriously, and the divine beast vanished. Although no one is obstructing them now, their situation is still more difficult than the other families. Should we persist in searching for the deity? The plan to find the divine beast cannot be stopped. Seeing others show off, the Duke felt indignant. This plan must continue. Meanwhile, the female lead was walking down a path. Her stomach felt unwell, and her face was a little pale. She saw a ghost who wanted to introduce someone to her. The female lead figured it was probably another ghost and thought about leaving. Seeing the female lead's refusal, the ghost looked aggrieved. But looking at the ghost's pitiful expression, the female lead still decided to refuse. She walked away ruthlessly. The ghost didn't pester her anymore. However, things were about to get more difficult. The ghost would suddenly appear while she was walking. The ghost would appear while she was sleeping. It even appeared when she was eating. Faced with the ghost's pleading, the female lead was getting really fed up. She finally lost her temper. The ghost used its special move. It acted pitiful, pestered beyond endurance. The female lead finally agreed. It turned out to be the Defu Mausoleum. She would have to go find it. The ghost said it would lead her there. The place the female lead imagined was like this. But when she actually arrived, she found it was like this. Moreover, the ghostly aura here wasn't strong. In fact, the sunlight was quite dazzling. The ghost led the female lead to this place. The female lead looked at the tombstone ahead. So this was the place. Seeing the new ghost in front of her, the female lead forced herself to stay calm. Finally, she couldn't hold it in. The female lead curiously asked about this duke. This was the 39th Duke, Helixusorb. The female lead couldn't help but ask about his hair. But the duke ignored her impudence and said something that utterly shocked her. This former duke actually wanted the female lead to find the divine beast. The female lead was stunned on the spot. What? He wanted her to find the divine beast? In the early morning, the female lead was drinking tea. The former duke, who died mysteriously, now wanted the female lead to find the divine beast. The thought that if she really found the divine beast, she didn't know how big of a stir it would cause. She'd be interviewed at the presentation, and the story would develop in a strange direction. The female lead would become a shaman, or she'd be treated as a lunatic during the search for the divine beast. Finding the divine beast was such an important matter. If she was really the one to find it, it would be extremely tricky. A gentle breeze blew through the female lead's hair. That's right, she had come here again. The ghost next to her was flattering her. However, the female lead was indeed very beautiful. But she wasn't falling for the ghost's flattery. Seeing the ghost's eager attempt to deny it, the female lead was non-committal. At this moment, footsteps were heard in the distance. They saw the female lead from afar. Petro Jebelin, the eldest son of the Duke Jebelin family, the object of the female lead's past obsessive love. At this moment, they began to discuss the female lead. The female lead didn't see them at all. She was just worrying about the divine beast. It was once rumored that the female lead stole Petro's things. The people next to him felt indignant on his behalf. But Petro spoke up for the female lead. Seeing the female lead again now, he found that she had changed a lot from before. Faced with other slander against the female lead, he chose to walk away. Suddenly, he paused his steps, looked back at the female lead, and gave a meaningful smile. Why did Camilla appear here? Late at night, the female lead was lying in bed, sleeping. Suddenly, her throat felt sore, and she wanted to get up for a drink of water. When she opened the water pitcher, she found it was empty. The female lead thought for a moment. She slowly left the room to find water. Suddenly, she noticed light coming from her room. Driven by curiosity, the female lead opened the door. The scene before her was astonishing. The female lead's brother, Robbie, was eating. Robbie was also very surprised to see the female lead. Knowing she just came out for water, he was puzzled. Just then, the female lead sat down opposite him. The female lead smiled at Robbie, saying she just wanted to watch a mukbang. Not understanding what the female lead was saying, Robbie ignored her. Watching Robbie eat elegantly, the sound was very healing. While eating, Robbie glanced at the female lead. Her reaction couldn't help but attract his attention. Seeing the female lead about to fall asleep, Robbie advised her to go back to her room to rest. The female lead, whose eyes could barely stay open, was still being stubborn, but in fact, she was already asleep. Just as Robbie hesitated, about to get up and take the female lead back to her room, the sound of footsteps behind him made him freeze. At this moment, Ludbai walked over. He told Robbie to continue eating. Ludbai then picked up the female lead, wanting to take her back to her room. Robbie simply couldn't believe his eyes. In response to Robbie's shouting, Ludbai was now worried about waking the female lead. In the morning, the female lead woke up in her bed, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Seeing that she was in her room, she suddenly remembered that she had been watching Robbie eat before she fell asleep. The female lead instantly felt very embarrassed, as if she could already predict Robbie's complaints. The female lead had a bad dream last night. In the dream, she was pulling on Ludbai's sleeve, telling him not to kill her. And Ludbai said he wouldn't kill her. Then the female lead smiled very happily. The thought of herself crying and laughing in her dream made the female lead very embarrassed. At this point, she still didn't know that it wasn't a dream at all. In the hallway, the female lead happily called out to Robbie. He was very unhappy to hear her call his name. The female lead was still joking with Robbie, not noticing at all that his face had already darkened. In fact, Robbie hadn't carried the female lead at all. Seeing Robbie glaring at her, the female lead felt a little sheepish. At this moment, footsteps were heard from a distance. Ludbai appeared before them. Seeing Ludbai, the female lead's acting skills came online. She greeted him happily, but Ludbai didn't react at all. An awkward atmosphere surrounded the three of them. While she was frantically complaining internally, her face was all sunshine, just as the female lead's face was about to stiffen from smiling. Ludbai finally nodded. At this, Robbie suddenly became displeased because of the female lead's differential treatment. The female lead had never been so respectful to him. Hearing this, the female lead felt that Robbie was being very unreasonable. Seeing Robbie demanding an explanation, although she was speechless, she still gave him one. Hearing the female lead say that he was her family, Robbie's eyes lit up. At this moment, Robbie's mood greatly improved, and he was no longer angry. The female lead looked at Robbie's smug expression and was speechless. At this moment, the female lead noticed Ludbai. He was looking coldly at Robbie's smug expression, almost turning to stone. The female lead standing by didn't understand these two at all. At the dining table, the Duke sat there with a grave expression. The female lead laughed it off. Today, they all looked like death. It turned out to be Duke Fleck. This was the Duke's friend and rival, Jebelin, and Jebelin would be arriving. When he was mentioned, everyone started staring at the female lead. This gaze was hard for the female lead to ignore. Petro Jebelin was one of the top 5 people the female lead least wanted to meet at the academy. After all, the female lead had a crush on him for a long time. At that time, the female lead asked him to the ball, but he refused. He already had a date for the party. At this, the female lead was rejected. Facing the person she liked, her face turned bright red. The female lead ran away, still comforting herself that Petro didn't hate her. Petro appeared at the party with his date. Juella greeted the female lead gloatingly. At that time, the female lead was simple-minded and didn't think much of it. Juella suddenly leaned in close to the female lead and whispered the cruelest truth. In fact, Petro had only invited her 2 days ago. The self-deceiving words were now exposed to her face. The female lead was very shocked. At this moment, Juella was still gloating, happily admiring the female lead's expression, and she lightly mocked the female lead for being just the ducal family's fake daughter. At this, the female lead violently grabbed Juella's hair. The infamous party commotion incident thus occurred. The final outcome was Camilla's violent behavior. In fact, Camilla was just trying to cover up the insult of being called a fake daughter. The Duke asked the female lead with concern. At this, the female lead closed her sandwich and reassured them. The three of them were still worried about the female lead. But the current Camilla was someone who had transmigrated. The Duke was still half believing and half doubting. Actually, you couldn't blame others for being suspicious. This incident hadn't happened long ago, and Camilla had always been Petro's stalker. At the dining table, the Duke was worried about Jebelin's arrival, while the female lead was worried about finding the divine beast. The two of them clearly didn't understand the female lead's worries. The Duke asked about the female lead's troubles. The female lead pretended to be nonchalant. The Duke was very happy to see his daughter's bright smile, while Ruby's jaw almost dropped. They continued their meal. A dish was brought to the dining room. Its color was black. It was made at the female lead's instruction. This was black bean juice and black bean sorbet, which can prevent hair loss. The Duke, while eating, certainly couldn't understand the female lead's hidden meaning. The female lead secretly plotted to add a portion for Ludbai as well. After all, the former Duke was bald. In a flash, Jebelin had already arrived at the ducal mansion. At the entrance, Jebelin patted Ludbai's shoulder, full of praise for him. The Duke ignored him. Duke Jebelin wanted to enter before speaking. It was then that Duke Jebelin noticed 2 people standing behind Duke Sorb. They were the female lead and Robbie. Duke Jebelin turned his head, glanced at them, gave a slight nod as a gesture, and then walked into the mansion with Duke Sorb. It seemed that in Duke Jebelin's eyes, they were people to be looked down upon and ignored. Moreover, he had quite a few opinions about the female lead's crush on his son. But this life was different from the last. As the female lead was frantically complaining in her mind, she heard someone call her. Turning around, Petro stood before the female lead. Looking at his appearance, But he truly stunned the female lead. Seeing his concern for her, the female lead still faced him with a smile. The female lead hated his behavior of pretending to be misleading. Petro began his performance in front of the female lead, but she had long seen through his true colors and was frantically complaining internally. Petro subtly hinted that he wanted the female lead to accompany him for a walk in the garden. Unexpectedly, the female lead didn't act as she had before. She just asked Rub to accompany him. This action greatly surprised Petro. This was no longer the Camilla he used to know. Petro had never thought he would be rejected. The female lead stood up and left with polite etiquette. Rub also led Petro away. He still looked back at the female lead in disbelief. Rubby's gaze collided with his. After watching them leave, Petro laughed self-deprecatingly. At this moment, in the office, Duke Jebelin was questioning Duke Sorb, trying to find out if he had found the divine beast, as well as the investigation of the unknown mineral on the mountain. Duke Jebelin wanted to interfere with Sorb. Duke Sorb firmly refused. As the two were arguing about this matter, the knock on the door interrupted the conversation in the room. While Duke Jebelin looked puzzled, Duke Sorb was very happy. The female lead pushed a card in, displaying a scene of harmonious father-daughter affection in front of Duke Jebelin. The female lead was worried the Duke wouldn't sleep well at night, so she brought tea to help him sleep. She also wanted to bring a cup before bed. Faced with the female lead's concern, the Duke happily invited her to sit down together. The female lead looked over smugly. Seeing Duke Jebelin's displeased expression, she saw the little guy, the divine beast on Duke Jebelin's shoulder. It seemed that only the female lead could see the divine beast. The two men didn't seem to react at all and continued to argue. Hearing the Duke's praise for the tea, the female lead was very happy. Just as the female lead was feeling smug, marveling at the craftsmanship of a butler with many years of experience, that she saw Duke Jebelin looking at her, while the little divine beast was pulling Duke Jebelin's hair. Being stared at was very awkward. The female lead suggested that Duke Jebelin also have a taste. Duke Jebelin was tasting it, but the little divine beast kept staring at the female lead and talking to her. It said things like the female lead's soul was very clear, which the female lead didn't quite understand. This made the female lead feel even more at a loss, because only the head of the family could see the divine beast. Duke Jebelin called out Lenny. The divine beast suddenly changed its form. It spread its wings, flew up, and landed on Duke Jebelin's shoulder. The female lead was greatly surprised, thinking it only appears when summoned by the head of the family. This must be a ghost. Duke Jebelin was very pleased, but Duke Sorb was very angry, feeling this was a blatant show-off. Duke Jebelin's smug look left the others speechless. Just then, the divine beast stared intently at the female lead and took off. It flew in the female lead's direction. With a shocked expression, the female lead watched as it landed beside her. The divine beast then sat right on the female lead's lap. Duke Jebelin tried to call Lenny back, but the divine beast ignored him and even turned its head away, despite Duke Jebelin's stern calls. Lenny lay motionless in the female lead's arms, showing that it really liked her pure soul. The female lead couldn't shoo it away either. After all, she was naturally popular with ghosts. Duke Sorb added fuel to the fire from the side, very pleased with this development. The divine beast clearly preferred his daughter. Duke Jebelin was furious, but Lenny completely ignored Duke Jebelin's calls. The room suddenly fell silent. Seeing Duke Jebelin's embarrassed face, Duke Sorb couldn't help but laugh out loud. Duke Jebelin was plunged into a strange sense of loss, and the female lead, who caused the incident, was stuck in the middle, not knowing what to do. A few days later, the female lead left home and started school. The maid looked at her with concern, wanting to persuade the female lead to change her major. The female lead waved goodbye to the family carriage. She couldn't blame them for their advice. After all, her major was swordsmanship. The Sorb family was renowned for swordsmanship and already had 2 sword masters. The original owner, before the transmigration, had chosen this swordsmanship major because of the family. But with the female lead's small frame, practicing with a sword was still a bit difficult. The female lead sat on a nearby bench, pondering what to do next. This was the original owner's obsession. Maybe she would come back, or maybe the present was for the best. The female lead wanted to take a nap here. She was almost like an invisible person here. The teachers had given up on Camilla, and this place was a sanctuary for napping. Next to the female lead, a ghost was leaning against a tree. There was even a sword stuck in its chest. The female lead looked around and discovered, in such a large training ground, there was only this one tree. After some hesitation, the female lead decided to rest under the tree anyway. She pretended not to see it. At the same time, the ghost didn't glance at the female lead either. This was exactly what the female lead wanted, to rest without disturbing each other. Just then, someone noticed Camilla amidst the commotion. Petro was here, watching the female lead, voicing his long-held suspicion. She's like a different person. The female lead and the ghost did not disturb each other, and she was sound asleep. Someone saw the female lead sleeping and was very surprised. They started gossiping about her. Petro smiled, sighed, and turned to leave, while the two people next to him were still in shock. One of them was bumped hard on the shoulder. He was about to curse out loud, but he didn't expect the person who bumped into him to be Yale Xian. The newcomer chuckled, showing no awareness that he had bumped into someone, completely unapologetic. The great magic family, Sepra. Yale Xian, the eldest son of the Sepra family. He possessed immense magic and athletic talent. However, his character was highly questionable. Anyone who provoked him would not have a good end. At this moment, Petro acted as a peacemaker, avoiding a conflict. Yale Xian slowly walked over, looking at Petro and mocking him for being a smiling tiger. Hearing Petro, someone else called Yalexion's name and was met with a punch. The fight between the two was seen by an instructor. Fighting is forbidden during class time. Yale Xian looked in the female lead's direction, feeling that she had become very strange. He muttered to himself, could it be that she can see them? The campus was very sunny. On the training grounds, in the hallways, and even worse, there were ghosts in the classrooms too. The female lead had just put her head down to sleep when she was caught by the professor. He started to single her out, making her answer a question on the board. Faced with the professor's targeting, the female lead felt he was very childish. In her past life, the female lead worked in the entertainment industry. She never gave up on studying despite having little rest time, even when her body couldn't take in the end. Moreover, having seen Camilla's past, she knew the subjects he taught like the back of her hand. The female lead had already done the professor's test papers more than 10 times. So, she was very confident she could go back to sleep. The professor was stunned on the spot. The female lead sat in the carriage on her way back, feeling completely drained. She didn't expect this school to even have ghosts in the restrooms. Before she knew it, it was already dusk when she returned. The female lead got down, yawning. The carriage was too soft, and she had fallen asleep without realizing it. When she happened to look up, the beautiful sunset before her made her stop in her tracks. This was the first time since coming to this world that the female lead truly enjoyed the beauty of a sunset. Hearing someone call Camilla, the female lead turned around and saw the Duke had actually come out to greet her. This was a treatment the female lead had never experienced in her childhood. She couldn't help but shed tears. When the female lead was a child, she was always greeted by darkness when she came home, whether at home or in the orphanage. Seeing the female lead cry, the Duke grabbed her, not knowing what to do. In her past life, the female lead never shed a tear, not even when her mother passed away or when her so-called father came to ask her for money. But faced with the Duke's concern, her tears fell uncontrollably. This was the first time the female lead sincerely called the Duke father. "I'm home." In her room, the female lead felt an unprecedented sense of shame for her earlier behavior. Because at that moment, everyone was watching her and the Duke at her most embarrassing moment. Everyone saw it. At this moment, the female lead's stomach growled disappointingly. As the saying goes, nothing is more important than eating. The female lead went to eat. As soon as she pushed open the door, she found Robbie standing beside it, apparently waiting for her. Robbie put on a look of disgust, complaining that the female lead was as slow as a turtle. But as soon as the female lead retorted, "Have you ever seen a turtle as beautiful as me?" Robbie turned his head, looking like he was about to vomit. Robbie threw a bracelet at the female lead. She was curious about its use. It turned out to be a magic bracelet. If she encountered someone bullying her, she could throw it at them. The bracelet could tightly entangle someone. It turned out Robbie thought the female lead was being bullied at school, so he gave her something for backup. She was about to ask if she'd get in trouble for using it, but Robbie said her reputation was already terrible. This infuriated the female lead. Robbie really couldn't say anything nice. Before she knew it, a lot of time had passed. The female lead came to the lakeside. The ghost beside her begged her to get in the water. Looking at the lake before her, the female lead knew she couldn't delay any longer. Before her was the Spirit Lake of Peblo Academy. Ludby also attended this school, yet she hadn't found it. According to the 39th family head, Helikshu, the divine beast was sleeping here. The ghost even said the water was warm. It was clearly freezing. The female lead turned and left, planning to come back when the water was warmer. The ghost behind her was relentless, bringing up Helikshu. The ghost's eyes glowed. It knew where the divine beast was in the lake and wanted the female lead to go with it. Just as the female lead and the ghost were arguing, voices came from a distance. She encountered a scumbag forcing himself on a girl, bullying her with his power. At that moment, the female lead stepped forward. She mocked the bully. The man threatened the female lead, telling her to get lost. But the female lead was fearless. Chewed Hyperly, the second son of Count Hyperly, the son of a concubine, a scoundrel since childhood. The female lead not only knew his identity, but also knew about the many disgusting things he had done, forcing himself on innocent women everywhere. And the female lead knew so much because of the ghosts. Suddenly, the humiliated and enraged Chewed that grabbed the female lead's collar. The female lead felt very uncomfortable with her collar being grabbed. Chewed actually wanted to lay his hands on the female lead too. At this moment, the girl beside them, though scared, still spoke up to defend the female lead. Unexpectedly, the female lead threw something over, which tied Chewed up. With a casual wave of her hand, the female lead hoisted Chewed into the air. This was the bracelet Robbie had given her earlier. It came in handy at this moment, but Robbie hadn't said how to untie it. Suddenly, 3 people walked over from a distance. They were Chewed's accomplices. They surrounded the female lead. Just as the female lead was silently backing away, unsure what to do, she bumped into someone. Unexpectedly, it was Ludbai. He was just passing by. His sudden appearance made it hard for the female lead not to be suspicious. Ludbai must be here for a reason. Ludbai actually thought these people had made the female lead cry. The female lead didn't deny it, planning to resolve the current situation first. Remembering how the female lead had cried earlier, Ludbai stepped forward and pulled her behind him. The female lead stood smugly behind Ludbai. The girl behind her thanked her. Taking a closer look, the female lead realized that the person before her was the true female lead of this world, Layla Heston. Although Layla was very friendly to Camilla, the female lead still disliked her, because both of them were very kind, but their treatment was different. The original Camilla was very unfriendly to Layla. Camilla, blinded by jealousy, had successfully kidnapped Layla and wanted to kill her. But then the Duke appeared. His disappointed expression made him seem like a stranger. After that, everyone in the ducal family distanced themselves from her. Such an important person, yet the female lead had forgotten about her. What the female lead didn't expect was that Layla had actually followed her, worried she might run into danger in the forest. Layla said she was already the center of attention. No matter what the female lead wore or did, Layla chattered on endlessly beside her, and the female lead was left speechless. The way Layla looked at the female lead was like a little fangirl. The female lead had a headache. Why would Layla approach her on her own initiative? She turned around to see Ludbai had already taken care of the 4 men. As expected of a sword master, he finished them off quickly. It's just that the bracelet broke. Ludbai felt very guilty. Hearing the female lead say it was a gift from Robbie, Ludbai actually crushed the bracelet. After crushing it, he even apologized to the female lead. Late at night, the female lead lay in bed, unable to sleep. She thought over and over that the plot was illogical. Logically, the 2 of them should have a romantic storyline, a love entanglement. Originally, their first meeting was supposed to be at the market. Now it had changed. The female lead couldn't figure it out. In the middle of the night, she was woken up by Lord Hellickshoe. It turned out the ghost's wishes were about to come true, so they could appear freely. The 2 of them were supervising the progress of the female lead's mission. Suddenly, the female lead screamed. The servants all rushed over. The Duke rushed over. He saw tears in the female lead's eyes. She said she saw the Duke's office on fire, with him inside. Robbie also came over, looking annoyed. The Duke was very happy because the female lead said she had risked her life to save him. In reality, this was a change to a real event, although she didn't know the exact date. And the female lead's goal was to make others discover that she has prophetic dreams. At this moment, someone came in. The event the female lead predicted had happened. The room fell silent. Many people thought it was a coincidence. For the female lead, this was just bait. In the carriage, the female lead told the ghosts her plan. Everything the female lead was doing was to lay the groundwork for finding the divine beast herself. After all, no one would believe an ordinary person could find a divine beast. Meanwhile, the female lead found the factory manager, Count Zalen. He was very surprised that the female lead knew him. as Count Zalen was wondering, that the female lead said she had a gift for him. The female lead presented the gift. She mysteriously said it was a blessing. Count Zalen was very surprised after seeing it. Elsewhere, the maids were discussing that Countess Zalen was pregnant, and Camilla knew it first. It turned out the female lead had gifted a pair of little girls' shoes that would be needed soon. A prediction. It might be a girl. In the kitchen, they discussed the female lead's premonitions. For example, that a newly hired person was a fraud. The head maid's mother passed away. All were predicted by the female lead. Everyone felt the female lead was amazing. Regarding this, the Duke asked the female lead about the recent rumors that she could see the future. But the female lead just pretended she knew nothing and gave the Duke a heads up in advance to pave the way for her to find the divine beast later. After doing all this, the female lead could go find the divine beast with peace of mind. At the lakeside, the female lead started to enter the water. Led by the ghost, the female lead finally saw a bead at the bottom of the lake. She gently picked it up. She couldn't stay underwater for too long. Just as the female lead wanted to swim up, Donna actually came to the shore. Donna brought the female lead to the shore. Luckily, the bead was still there. Donna's sudden appearance was strange. She thought the female lead was trying to commit suicide. Her next words shocked her. If you die this time, you won't go back. Donna seemed to know something. The female lead returned to the ducal manor soaking wet. Ludby draped a cloak over her, thinking she had been bullied by those people. But the female lead left quickly, unlike her usual lively self. Once inside her room with the door closed, the female lead shooed the ghost out. The female lead began to question Donna about the cause and course of events. Donna was still hiding something. The reason why the female lead came here was finally about to be revealed. Under the female lead's pressure, Donna started to confess. Donna was actually a soul manager, but she had been dismissed because she had misplaced souls. It turned out the female lead's soul and Camilla's soul had been swapped. The female lead was very unhappy, so her misfortune was caused by someone else. The hardships the female lead had once suffered, Camilla's helplessness and grievances. The person who caused all this was right in front of her. The female lead loudly questioned Donna, "Why didn't you correct the mistake?" But a loophole in consciousness is not so easily fixed. One must follow the laws of the world. It turned out that while you were watching Camilla's life, Camilla was also repeatedly watching the female lead's life. And this place was the female lead's original life. If the female lead were to die here, she would truly die. And Camilla, in the female lead's original body, was also changing her own destiny. The female lead thought, "I hope she has her own plans." The final breakthrough point was when the female lead realized the female lead of the other world was actually the ghost she saw before she died, and the time rift that appeared. Only then could they switch back with the right time, place, and people. The female lead really wanted to beat Donna up, but Donna was a girl, so she couldn't be so rough. Who knew that Donna would suddenly transform into an elegant, handsome man? He said his name was Doraemon, and this was his true form. Doraemon had actually disguised himself as a maid to get close to the female lead. The female lead felt a chill. Nothing else mattered. The most important thing was that this guy had attended to her while she bathed. At this point, Doraemon started to be vague about his gender. Now, Doraemon's previous skills were disappearing. He could no longer see ghosts, but the female lead's ability to see ghosts was innate. Doraemon's duty was to ensure both of them could live their lives peacefully, avoiding their tragic ends. The female lead wanted to find a superior, but Doraemon and the others were already compensating the female lead with the luck she should have had in the real world. And what Camilla received was Doraemon himself. Looking at the person before her, the female lead really wanted to smack him dead with a slipper. She sat on the stool, very angry. In the beginning, Donna must have been monitoring her. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have gone through her previous ordeal. Just as she walked out of the room to give the divine beast to the Duke, the female lead was stunned by the sight before her. She saw Doraemon interacting naturally with others, using his ability to make others naturally accept his existence. And the female lead hadn't known the truth before. It was because Doraemon was maintaining the balance. But these days, Doraemon couldn't do anything. The female lead said he was completely useless. The female lead walked to the office and found the butler at the door. The Duke was busy. The female lead had no choice but to come back next time. But her abnormal behavior aroused the butler's suspicion. You see, the original female lead was very afraid of the cold. It was impossible for her to go swimming at this time. Just then, Ludby arrived. He said he would go in with the female lead. The butler also said it was fine. The female lead hadn't even gone in yet when the divine beast came out first. It immediately discovered that the female lead had found the divine beast. What was rare was that the guest was actually much more polite to the female lead, greeting her. As soon as the female lead got close, the pendant on the Duke lit up, echoing the divine beast bead on the female lead. The ghost's wish was finally fulfilled. According to legend, the divine beast's roar could deafen people, and a single footstep could turn the surroundings blood red. But what was with this cute little cat in front of her? The female lead found it hard to accept the little cat before her, but the Duke beside her explained that it was only because of its long slumber. The divine beast stared at the female lead and pounced on her, acting cute in her arms. The Duke was very gratified. The former Duke was also very happy. For hundreds of years, but the divine beast had finally found its master. Suddenly, without any warning, she collapsed. While the female lead was unconscious, Doorman brought her medicine. The former head chef wanted to make snacks for the female lead. The Duke was scolding the servants to find a doctor, but the female lead just had a cold. The former Duke was at the female lead's bedside, saying he had something to give her, crying uncomfortably at the side. Lullaby stroked her head. Her older brother threatened that if the female lead didn't wake up, he would break the newly repaired bracelet. When the female lead woke up, she found the divine beast in her bed, and no matter how she looked at it, it looked just like a kitten. Doorman came in and left immediately. The Duke quickly entered, looking at the female lead's pale face. Compared to the Duke, the divine beast preferred to stay with the female lead. It was fine for it to stay by her side. The Duke said nothing, got up, and left, letting the divine beast stay with the female lead. At the same time, Donna came to deliver medicine. After closing the door, the female lead went to sleep with the divine beast. The next day, facing the questioning of the three men, but the female lead was very uneasy. The Duke was heartbroken that the female lead had searched for the divine beast in the river all by herself. But the female lead thought the Duke was afraid she would bring shame to the ducal house. She was very surprised to learn that the Duke was actually concerned about her, and the divine beast kept following her, which puzzled her. The Duke answered the female lead's question. The divine beast grows by feeding on the female lead's aura, and it likes her very much. The reason the divine beast stays by the family head's side is because they have an aura that the divine beast likes. And the female lead happens to have this aura, so she is very much liked by the divine beast. And the reason that guy came this time was also because Lenny wanted to see you. The Duke was very grateful to the female lead for finding the divine beast and wanted to give her a reward. But what the female lead was thinking about was money. She was afraid of disappointing the Duke, but she couldn't say it directly. The female lead looked up and had an idea: the Duke's family mine. The Duke was very hesitant because that mine had no commercial value, but the female lead insisted on having this mine. The Duke agreed. The female lead was very happy. The three men were very puzzled as to why she was so happy. After all, in their eyes, that it was just useless black stones. What they didn't know was that these were magic stones, and only black mages could make a contract with them. This world was divided into black mages and white mages. Black mages were ostracized. However, the ones leading the mainstream of magic now were the black mages. After being refined by a black mage, magic stones could also be used by white mages. The female lead asked Helikshu for a gift. Helikshu brought the female lead to a grave and told her to dig in a certain spot. The female lead was shocked. Who would want to dig up a grave? But the Duke pointed to a spot and told the female lead. Today, the female lead used her high-heeled shoe to dig out a seed. The Duke explained that this was a medicine with powerful detoxification effects. It was the result of the former Duke purifying toxins before his death. Afterward, one would be immune to all poisons. The female lead was puzzled. She might not necessarily need it. She actually wanted gold and jewels more. The former Duke fulfilled his regret before death and was very grateful to the female lead. He finally dissipated. The female lead pondered how to find a black mage. Finally, she made up her mind and went to a classroom. As expected, her appearance always attracted everyone's attention. They all thought she was looking for Petro, who knew the female lead would walk up to a certain person and, with a smile, say she wanted to show him something. He was from the black magic family of Sepra. He was rumored to be very cruel, but for the sake of money, the female lead didn't mind taking the initiative to talk to him, but he directly ignored her and left, just as the female lead was about to chase after him. As she was stopped by Petro, the female lead shook him off, annoyed. Petro actually showed concern, telling the female lead to stay away from him, but the female lead directly refused Petro's help and scurried away. And Petro discovered that his charm no longer worked on the female lead. Seeing the bustling crowd, the female lead's head ached. A voice said it could help him. When the female lead turned her head, she discovered it was the ghost Amy. This ghost had been sitting behind the female lead the whole time. The female lead had thought it was Defa Lin. Now, Amy realized the female lead could see her. The female lead tried to play dumb, but was unsuccessful. Ignoring Amy's pestering, the female lead continued to search for Yelxian. She walked to Jinling Lake. The ghost Amy kept trying to befriend the female lead. The female lead was very annoyed and asked where that person was. It turned out that person had been behind her the whole time, watching the female lead talk to Amy. The female lead thought she might have been exposed, but with her acting skills, of course, she wouldn't admit it. She claimed she was just talking to herself, but she couldn't hide it and was found out. In Election's fierce appearance scared Amy. People like Yelxian are the natural enemies of ghosts. In Election's eyes, a ghost is just a ball of black mist. He can't see a ghost form like the female lead can. The female lead was very dissatisfied with Yelxian casually releasing his killing intent. She started to defend the ghost. By the time she realized what she was doing, she found that she had just yelled at someone with a terrible personality. Yelxian paid no attention to the female lead's expression. He asked if she could see the ghost behind him. The female lead said it was a skinny little boy. Yelxian was very surprised, turned around, and left. The female lead was very angry. This person was too impolite. After the female lead returned, she was still thinking about the little boy's cause of death. The divine beast suddenly appeared and burrowed into the female lead's arms. And the female lead gave a new name. Great King. Although she was mocked for having no taste, it was still better than Lenny. The Sepra family controls black magic. Even the Emperor cannot interfere. That's why the female lead sought out Yelxian. And in the female lead's repeated lives, she had no interaction with the Sepra family. Rumor has it that the divine beast, the Black Wolf, is incredibly powerful. Wherever it goes, death is certain. The female lead looked at the little thing before her, feeling the name was somewhat unfitting. She taught it that it must run if it ever sees a black wolf. Studying in the classroom, the female lead ignored the disruptive ghost beside her, trying hard to pass the midterm exam. Who knew that at this moment, Yelxian would suddenly come over, wanting to talk to the female lead. Taking up the female lead's study time naturally required compensation. Yelxian readily agreed, promising anything. By the Spirit Lake, Yelxian wanted the female lead to talk to the ghost behind him. The female lead looked at the little boy before her and took out some candy from her hand. Although the little boy couldn't eat it, he could absorb the food's energy. To see that this skinny boy before her didn't even recognize candy. When she asked for his name, Yelxian had a big reaction. Yelxian had just called out Seal. The little boy's tears fell like rain as he cried out, "Brother." The female lead discovered something incredible. The little boy before her was actually Election's younger brother. A long time ago, in a dungeon, the two of them deferred to each other over a piece of bread. However, in this prison, only one person could live. Just to obtain that power, one had to kill their family. This was absolutely unacceptable. One night, Seal suddenly felt unwell, but no one opened the door. Seal was still smiling before he died, because Yelxian could finally get out. After a decade, Yelxian was very moved to see his brother, but the female lead ended up becoming their interpreter. Seal really liked the candy the female lead brought. Looking at his skinny form, the female lead wondered how a soul could get fat. The female lead wanted to leave, but was stopped by Yelxian. It turned out that when Seal passed away, Yelxian gained the ability to see ghosts. The Sepra family knows how to eliminate ghosts, but he wanted to keep the ghost just like before. His guess was indeed correct. Seal was right beside him. It was a good thing he hadn't eliminated him. For the first time, the female lead envied them. Now Seal wanted to eat, so the female lead told Yelxian to go buy food. The female lead went into his classroom and had him sign a document to provide help regarding the black mages. Yelxian signed it without even looking. The female lead was surprised by his readiness. Yelxian stated that since he had promised the female lead, he would fulfill his promise. The female lead wanted him to help look into the black mages. The others in the class saw them and started gossiping. They were very curious about their suddenly improved relationship. By the Spirit Lake, the female lead greeted the little boy, but after not seeing him for a few days, the little boy had become distant. Luckily, the female lead brought cookies. The female lead took out a magic stone to show him. After Yale-hsien sensed it, he discovered that it indeed had magic power. This was something that would drive those old folks crazy. And the female lead's goal was very clear. She needed the power of the black mages. And what she needed Yale-hsien to do was to act as a go-between. The Sepra family looked at the stone before them. Yale-hsien stated he would give it to that person. The stone was thrown onto Duke Sepra's desk. After Duke Sepra examined it carefully, he wanted to meet the female lead. After saying this, Yale-hsien was about to leave, but was stopped by the Duke. Duke Sepra wanted a resolution. The door was slammed shut. Duke Sepra was very curious. This was the first time Yale-hsien had agreed to someone else's request. The next day, the female lead stood before the Duke Sepra's mansion. It was different from what the female lead had imagined. It was very ordinary here. Without even needing to knock, the female lead and Yale-hsien went inside. Before them was Duke Sepra. The female lead curtsied, sat down, and started talking about the deal. The black mages would take a 10 profit. In a mutually beneficial contest, the female lead succeeded. She planned to go back and sign a contract. At this moment, Duke Sepra spoke. His family's divine beast also liked the female lead, and the female lead had been pretending not to see it. Clearly, the female lead's disguise was not successful. It was still discovered that she could see the divine beast. Duke Sepra had heard of the female lead's deeds before. Now it wasn't so strange. The female lead held back for a long time, but finally asked why the little boy was hugging him. A few days ago, the female lead wasn't interested in the ghost's past life, but this little boy still made the female lead want to know. And what was the matter with his back? The little boy had a strong reaction. This wasn't done by Yale-hsien. After Duke Sepra listened to Seal's description, the female lead never thought there could be such a crazy family. And the wound on Seal's back was from being beaten by his father while protecting his brother. And to become the master of the divine beast, one must possess hatred and resentment. And every generation's family head is produced this way. They were locked up for 3 months until he died. Only then was Yale-hsien released. The female lead looked at Seal with great pity. And now the female lead really didn't understand. Seal should have resented him, and the Duke watched without saying a word. Yale-hsien glared at him. He asked him if he had anything to say, but Duke Sepra just had a flat expression. He had nothing to say. Facing his brother who was losing his temper at their father, Seal was still protecting his father. It turned out the truth was that Seal didn't have long to live anyway. By accepting this trial, he could let Yale-hsien become the family head. And in the dungeon, the father shed tears. And in the Sepra family, every head dies quickly. Because the divine beast's core is inside the family head's body, it must be cut open to be found. And what this family needs least is emotion. The female lead looked at this father and son, her heart in turmoil. Is this something she should know? In the early morning, the female lead came to find Robbie. He was very puzzled because she never visits without a reason. The female lead suddenly asked what their biological parents were like. In her previous life, the female lead's biological father was a scumbag. In this world, the female lead knew nothing about her. And Robbie said he no longer remembered. And the ring the female lead was looking for before was a gift from their biological father to their mother. Seeing the female lead wandering around his room, Robbie looked annoyed and said to spit it out if she had something to say. He was busy. The female lead said, "Since you're so busy, you won't mind being a little busier." Ignoring the shocked Robbie behind her, she directly handed the promotional work to Robbie. The female lead was very happy. Once she earns enough money, she can leave his family. While the female lead was writing the contract, the little boy ran over and asked her to stop him. A short while ago, Yale-hsien was walking down the road. Someone tried to flatter him to score points with the Duke, and the man kept praising Duke Sepra while belittling Yale-hsien. Just like that, Yale-hsien started hitting the man, just as he was about to throw another punch. The female lead poured a basin of water on Yale-hsien to calm him down. The female lead spoke to Yale-hsien to handle the aftermath. She told Petro to take the man to the treatment room. The female lead helped Yale-hsien leave. By the lake, the female lead scolded Yale-hsien. If it weren't for the little boy, she wouldn't have come. Yale-hsien looked at his brother, very angry. The little boy looked pitifully at his brother, who was ignoring him. The female lead talked about her childhood, how she was almost strangled to death by her own father. Yale-hsien was very surprised. The female lead spoke of this matter with great composure. She could understand Yulexion's feelings. Her advice to him was to let all of this go. If you can't let go, the one who will suffer forever is yourself. The female lead saw that Yulexion's hand was injured. After the female lead bandaged his wound, she told Yulexien not to waste his brother's good intentions anymore. The female lead left. She was still thinking that he probably knew healing magic. She had wasted her handkerchief. Duke Sepra suddenly passed away around this time. Yulexien took his place, and the campus was in a complete mess. Rumors were flying everywhere. On the road, the female lead thought that Duke Sepra had committed suicide to allow Yulexien to cultivate his power. And after this, the one who could control him would be Layla. The female lead felt it was better to get some insurance. On Layla's side, she heard that Chuid had dropped out of school, and his family's business wasn't doing well either. This matter made Layla think of the female lead. She was very happy. She was thinking about what gift to give to thank Camilla. At this moment, a few classmates came over, wanting to copy Layla's homework. As Layla was handing it to them, the female lead arrived. She snatched the homework away. They were putting on a show, and the female lead also played along with them. Using her previous ability to prophesize as a rumor, the female lead deliberately scared them. She said they would be bullied by a young noble master, and they were clearly scared by the female lead. Faced with the female lead's threat, they didn't dare to copy the homework anymore. They just left. In reality, the female lead was just bluffing. She actually didn't know anything. But luckily they left. Every time the female lead met her, she was being bullied by others. The female lead suspected she was acting. Looking at Layla's adoring face, the female lead felt she was overthinking it. Over here, the Duke was discussing political affairs. It turned out that Chuid's withdrawal from school and the decline of the Hyperly Count's business were the Duke's doing. Chuid had bullied the female lead before, and the Duke had kept it in mind. He was thinking of getting revenge, and the campus has also been put in order. And the Sepra family has released a new magic stone. And while the magic stone is ostensibly from the Sepra family, the actual owner of the magic stone is someone else. The Duke requested an investigation into the owner of the magic stone. At the Sepra family estate, Yulexien stood before his father and reconciled with him. And Yulexien would not use that method to obtain the dukedom. And he would not let his father die just like that. Even without the divine beast, he could be very strong. Finally, having said what was on his mind, Yulexien felt great relief. Because of the female lead's words, Yulexien felt he didn't need to. The rich man of the Hong Dao family. A few days later, Yulexien was lying by a tree. Seeing him all wet, the female lead was very curious. Yulexien just said he felt hot and went for a swim. Looking at the rippling muscles on Yulexion's body, the female lead couldn't help but want to touch. The female lead touched his face and found Yulexion's face getting redder and redder. Just as Yulexien couldn't help but want to ask her, he was interrupted by a single sentence from the female lead. The female lead thought he had a fever. Yulexien, despite being a magician, works hard at swordsmanship. This makes other swordsmen feel quite awkward. If the female lead's brother were here, the two of them would probably get into an argument. Seeing the female lead snickering there, Yulexien was very confused. He was just about to see what the female lead had brought. His hand had just reached out when it was slapped down by the female lead. Hearing that the female lead brought it for him, the little boy was very happy. The little boy's color has brightened a lot. The female lead thought it might be because Yulexion's emotions were stable, but the little boy said he wasn't hungry. He leaned on the female lead's face and gave her a kiss. He thanked the female lead and slowly disappeared. He apologized to Yulexien for having lied to him before, and he could finally say these words. The little boy saw the female lead and entrusted his brother to her. The female lead was very shocked. Just like that, only they were left here. The female lead pushed the cake towards Yulexien, but he still wouldn't eat. In a corner the female lead couldn't see. The corners of Yulexion's mouth lifted slightly. At the Duke's mansion, Duke Jebelin and Duke Sepra both came to find the female lead. Occasionally shielded by the Duke, the female lead bumped her head against someone else's. She was very confused. The main players had all arrived. While the three dukes were arguing, the female lead, who was trying to sneak away, was caught and brought back. The two grabbed the female lead's hands and wouldn't let her go. The female lead was carried away by the two dukes. Sor stretched out a helpless hand towards the duke. Two people on the side were still watching the fun. The two bickered, arguing about taking a walk together. At this time, Petro also wanted to join. The three of them had their own thoughts. The three divine beasts surrounded the female lead. The two's purpose was simple. It was that the divine beasts wanted to see, something the Duke didn't understand. When did Duke Sepra meet his daughter? The divine beast of the Soar Mansion was much smaller. But luckily, it was reborn. The two were both pressing Duke Sepra. Where did the magic stone come from? Why would he help someone else? As they argued, the female lead finally snuck out. She met Rubu, who said the three young masters had gone for a walk. The female lead wondered what they would talk about. The female lead had just come out when she discovered 3 people following her. The key was that they each had their own story. They all had their own reasons for wanting to follow the female lead, and she could only treat them like air. The female lead and Doorman were walking in front, shopping. She saw a gift she wanted to give to Robbie as a return gift for the bracelet. However, what the female lead didn't know was that Petro was watching her from behind. Petro said sourly that the female lead and her brother have a good relationship. Yelsian expressed his confusion. Why would one give a gift to a family member? Unexpectedly, she heard a vendor's cry from the street. It was Layla helping a grandmother sell things. The female lead said this was the first time she had met someone so easy to bully. The female lead planned to leave. With one glance, she could tell this was the female lead, Layla. The two discussed that they must not turn back. As expected, a commotion suddenly broke out behind them. Someone smashed the stall, demanding protection money. Layla protected the old grandmother. And this was the first meeting between Petro and Layla. Petro was taught from a young age to help people in difficulty. Only by being kind and amiable to others can one become a good person. When the bad guy drew his sword, Petro blocked it, but his expression was cold. The female lead watched all this in shock. After Petro killed the man, he turned to look at the female lead to see if any blood had gotten on her. The female lead hid behind Yelsian. She heard him say that Petro was smiling while he was killing. After the female lead returned, she was looking at a map, thinking of leaving quickly. She was surrounded by a bunch of lunatics. They seemed gentle on the surface, but kill without even blinking. At this moment, Layla paid a visit. Layla came to thank the female lead. She wanted to give the female lead a gift and also wanted to invite her out for a walk. Just like that, they went out to the courtyard together. In a flash, Layla told the female lead to wait and then left. She tidied up in front of the female lead. Marrow praised her from the side, saying her skills were really good. Layla shyly expressed that this was all she knew how to do. Hearing Layla say that she made all of these herself and that she had just made them this morning, the female lead tried a piece and it was really delicious. Layla was on the side, enthusiastically promoting the other cakes, and she had grown them all herself. She wanted to make more for the female lead next time. Looking at Layla, the female lead's mood relaxed. The two of them ate very happily. Pero was on the side, about to drool. He wanted to eat too. In a flash, it was time for the grades to be posted. The female lead was actually in first place. Many people couldn't believe it. Looking at her results, the female lead was very pleased. She had taken the same exam 10 times. Even the ghost suspected the girl had cheated. Petro usually got first place, but this time he was second, and Yelsian was actually fifth. Yelsian was standing right behind the female lead. He had clearly handed in a blank paper, yet he could still get such a score. The ghost beside her was baring its teeth. It was the guy he had wanted to eliminate before. Yelsian suddenly leaned close to the female lead. He said his dad wanted to see her. The female lead thought it must be about the magic stone and agreed. She watched him leave. The female lead thought to herself that they didn't look like they liked to talk, but they actually did say some things. Layla ran over to congratulate the female lead. She wanted to show off to her dad that her friend had gotten first place. The female lead felt a bit unfamiliar with the word friend. After all, she didn't have any in that world. Layla had made more delicious food to give to the female lead. Pero also loved what she made. At this time, there was a commotion up ahead. It turned out Professor Jebby was back. He had been sick before. The female lead watched grimly. Another one from a duke's mansion had arrived. The female lead came again. "Brother, are you busy?" Robbie stood up speechlessly. "What is it now?" The female lead was just making a hypothetical about a murderer when she saw Robbie standing beside her with a serious face. She quickly waved her hands. Robbie thought she had foreseen a bad dream. The female lead originally wanted to ask what people's views on murder were. Robbie stated that when there is no evidence, a murderer is none of his business. And if he's not the next target, he can just pretend not to know. The guards will investigate. The female lead thought that staying put was a good method. She took a gift out of her pocket for Robbie. Robbie said on the surface that it was useless, but actually put it away. When asked why it was a fox, the female lead didn't speak. She just silently backed away. Finally, she ran off in a flash. Ruby's mouth said she was doing useless things, but his face looked happy. In the carriage, the female lead thought that Robbie was right. She would just pretend she hadn't seen anything. In the office, the female lead smiled at Jebby while screaming internally. She had originally wanted to stay out of it, so why did she run into him again? It turned out to be about the female lead's cheating. The investigation was done perfectly. He wanted to borrow the reference books. Of course, that was not possible. Jebby's eyes were clear as he looked at the female lead. He wanted to ask the female lead for a favor, because those books, the Duke's family books, were very precious. The female lead directly refused and left. He should be very surprised. After all, if the female lead hadn't seen the 7 ghosts behind him, she would have agreed. These female ghosts were all looking at him with resentment, and there were originally 6. Now, there were 7. He must be a murderer, but there was no information revealed about it. At this moment, Professor Jebby suddenly appeared behind her. It startled the female lead, and the ghost behind him was only wearing a single earring. At this moment, the female lead wanted to test him. She said she had lost a purple halo earring, but he looked confused. Just like that, he left. The female lead thought she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. After class, she was just sneaking around when she was bumped into by Petro. He kept asking her questions. The female lead was really impatient and looked at him, telling him he didn't need to fake his smile anymore. According to Dorman, it was a soul displacement. No one liked the original Camilla, so that smile is fake. The female lead turned and left Petro, who stood there alone, thinking in shock. He wasn't showing her his inner kindness. When Petro was a child, his mother was very happy with his obedience. Everyone envied him, but his body was very frail. He was constantly sick. Even walking a few steps was a struggle. Taking care of his mother became his daily routine. Although the illness tortured him, every time she saw his smile, his mother would be very happy. So he always smiled, trying to be the person his mother hoped for. This way, she would be happy. Even after his mother passed away, the disguise was already ingrained in his bones. And this was very simple for him. Because of this, many people gathered around him. But that day, he didn't do that. Normally, he would have stopped the commotion. He didn't understand why Camilla always appeared near him. He left, but not long after, his unease made him turn back. But the commotion was already over. When asked by others, he didn't care at all, because he felt Camilla would come find him again. However, he didn't expect that he wouldn't see Camilla for a long time. Until that Memorial Day, Camilla was no longer like before. In countless moments of encounter, Camilla became different, making his gaze naturally turn to her. Watching Camilla walk towards others, and that person was the one she hated the most. And the conclusion of that incident, these two people who didn't care about others' gazes, made Petro want to get closer. Until this time, Camilla told him he didn't have to fake a smile anymore, and the self he had been hiding was suddenly discovered. The two girls invited him for tea. When they saw his real expression, he knew he wasn't smiling at that moment, and that was his most genuine self. And now, he has put on his disguise again, to become the good person in his mother's eyes. The female lead went forward to find someone. She had already wasted too much time on Petro. The ghost finally appeared. He was the one the female lead was looking for. The female lead needed him for something. He helped the female lead take the ghost to see Professor Jebby, to ask him if he could contact the ghost around Jebby. At this moment, he suddenly became very silent. The female lead turned back and noticed Amy's expression, and there were tear stains on her neck. The female lead thought Amy was scared, but unexpectedly, Amy said not to look for them, thinking she was his biological sister. The female lead returned home, looking haggard. At this moment, the female lead felt it was a pity. She wanted to eat a delicious meal. The female lead asked Dorman, so the seasons have changed. He was tidying his room. The female lead looked around. Seeing no one was around, she secretly approached. The butler requested help from his other identity, the Hand of the Black Shadow. The butler pretended not to know what the female lead was talking about. But the female lead said she was very tired now and told the butler to come find her himself later, leaving only the butler standing there. Black Shadow. It existed before the establishment of the ducal house, a secret organization that existed. Its main purpose was to gather intelligence and transmit information. Only the head of the family knew about its secret operations. The reason the female lead knew was because Daylin was the former head. When Daylin was still around, he was already cultivating the Rubsolb family. The butler's other identity was the Black Shadow. Facing the Black Shadow, he was no longer in his capacity as a butler. The female lead directly said she wanted to investigate these people. According to Amy's description, these people were killed by Jebi. A long time ago, the two of them grew up in an orphanage. She was adopted and abused. 8 years later, her brother came looking for her and could only bring his sister back with a large sum of money. He had been trying to find a way but was unsuccessful. She passed away. Jebi was heartbroken and helpless. The adoptive parents claimed it was a suicide. In reality, Amy was strangled to death by them. From then on, Jebi began to kill women. The female lead couldn't understand. Even if he really went mad because of this, he shouldn't kill innocent women. The lead must find out why Jebi did this. Rubu agreed without a problem, but he wanted to know how the female lead knew about the hand of the Black Shadow. The female lead glanced at the ghost. The female lead started talking nonsense that she saw it with her own eyes. Of course, Rubu wouldn't believe it. Even if he could read her attitude, how would she know the name? The female lead's potential character setting came in handy at this moment, because he started to discover the person who tamed the divine beast. Rubu was still half believing, half doubting. The female lead was about to break into a cold sweat, and this matter couldn't be known by the Duke. He finally left. As expected, the chief is not easy to fool. For days later, the female lead came to his office. She agreed to assist with Jebi's research. Jebi was very happy. The female lead walked out. As the office door closed behind her, she fell into deep thought. According to the information brought by Rubu, the female lead was even more convinced that this person was a psychopath. Every deceased person had a common characteristic: adopted and domestically abused. The female lead was very confused. Why kill people who suffered the same hardships as his sister? And according to these investigations, the female lead learned that his next target was actually herself. It turned out that in others' eyes, the female lead was being abused. The Duke noticed the female lead was in a bad mood. The female lead said she was fine. At this moment, the female lead noticed the Duke was wearing new clothes. He said it was for attending a royal meeting. The female lead praised the clothes for looking good. She was confused. Wasn't the meeting next week? Why wear it now? At this moment, the Duke was just short of directly asking the female lead for a gift, saying his chest was missing an ornament. The female lead hadn't reacted yet. Why mention foxes and tigers? Only when she saw the person opposite did she realize. It turned out the Duke was hinting for her to buy him an accessory. The brother, who acted disgusted on the surface, still put it on. But didn't the Duke dislike accessories before? At this moment, Ludwig actually joined in the fun, saying his knight uniform also needed an accessory. It seems the female lead will have to buy them quickly next time she goes shopping. The female lead arrived at Jebi's house. The female lead was on high alert. After all, a crazed murderer was right in front of her. Jebi opened the door for the female lead with a sunny disposition. His house was very neat and ordinary. Although he was a crazed murderer, he lived a very normal life. The female lead inadvertently saw the box. It was the one Amy mentioned before. She had to get it. Looking at the tea in front of her, the female lead hesitated for a moment. Jebi watched the female lead drink the tea. Watching the female lead collapse, Jebi revealed his true self and was about to kill the female lead. The female lead suddenly woke up, pushed him down, and tied him up. After doing all this, the female lead was still a bit shaken, reminded of her former self. The person in front of her still didn't understand the female lead. The prior information had made her prepared. These were all his usual tricks. The female lead really didn't understand the person before her. He was still lamenting that the female lead hadn't died. He was still unrepentant, believing he had brought them happiness and liberation. Amy felt she was the cause of this outcome. The female lead was very angry. These are not excuses. They are Jebi's excuses for killing. By what right does he decide others' life and death? Camilla will now tell him the truth. But the girls who were together all became unfortunate because of Jebi. Miss Mubley had a lover, and they had promised each other a lifetime together before she died. Miss Lily saved money every month for the orphanage, where there were younger siblings she treated as her own. Miss Nautier was saving money to live her own life. Jebi couldn't believe it. The female lead was furious. By what right does he define others' happiness? Bad people must reap what they sow. Let's let you taste the feeling of death yourself. Isn't it very blissful? Why aren't you talking about bliss now? The female lead finally let him go. Looking at the person before her, she called Rubu out. He recorded the evidence at the scene. Rubu was very dejected. This was his first time doing this kind of thing. The female lead got the box. Inside were the women's accessories. This pervert even collected the deceased belongings. This matter was finally over. The girls could finally be liberated. The follow-up cleanup was handled by Rubu. The the female lead could finally breathe a sigh of relief. What the female lead didn't expect was that upon returning to the ducal mansion, she was made to stand in a corner as punishment. That detestable fox brother. She didn't expect Rubu to go and tattle. Couldn't he have put things more tactfully? The Duke also began his interrogation. The female lead had gone into danger by herself again, which made him very worried. Petro just kept staring at the female lead, making her very uncomfortable. Robbie, although very foul-mouthed, was constantly saying things to belittle the female lead. Seeing the bruises on the female lead's body, he still healed them, which moved the female lead greatly. The Duke was very angry at the female lead for acting on her own, thinking she didn't trust him very much. Just when the female lead thought he would hit her, the Duke just patted her head. He told the female lead to go rest, then turned his head and had a proud look on his face. My daughter is so amazing. In court, the murderer sat in the middle and was sentenced to death. In the end, he was sent to the guillotine. Amy had always been worried about her brother's crimes. Now she could finally be at ease. But the female lead didn't make the matter public. The victims' parents hid their deaths, claiming they were suicides. The female lead wanted to make these people pay the price. The female lead asked about Amy's adoptive parents. Duke Sepra and Yeltsin were playing chess. The two were discussing how the Duke had lent something so easily. At this moment, the female lead arrived to ask for something. Watching them play chess, the female lead asked them what the stakes were. The Duke replied it was just an agreement. It turned out that before, the female lead had helped a little boy's soul find liberation. The Duke had asked her what reward she wanted. The female lead only required them to play an hour of sunset chess together every day. If the little boy could see this, he would be very happy and look smugly at Yeltsin. He lost again today. The female lead wanted to borrow the ring because it can recreate the appearance of the deceased, displaying the illusion before one's eyes, to be used to take revenge on Amy's adoptive parents. This is why the female lead wanted the ring. The female lead noticed Yeltsin was staring at her, feeling very puzzled. The Duke cleared his throat and told Yeltsin to walk the female lead out. The two walked on the road together. Yeltsin asked the female lead, "Which ghost did you get into this state for this time?" Rumor has it the female lead had a physical brawl with Jebi. The female lead found it very exaggerated. She didn't expect what came next. Yeltsin hoped she would take him along next time. Just as the female lead was about to ask why she should bring him, Yeltsin scurried away. Amy came to say goodbye to the female lead. Before she disappears, she wants to travel the world. Amy will come back to see the female lead. She is very grateful for the female lead's help. The female lead wouldn't mind if she didn't come back. Even if she did, she could listen to the stories of her journey. Duke Jebelin held a birthday party. The Duke and the female lead attended in grand attire, stunning everyone on the side. They didn't know when the female lead had become so beautiful. Originally, the female lead didn't want to come, but she couldn't find an excuse to refuse, so she could only come with the Duke. Although getting along with the Duke is a good thing, but she still had to face her. Elisa. Everyone exchanged greetings with the Jebelins. Petro greeted the female lead. Elisa smirked behind Petro, pretending to be very close to the female lead. In reality, Elisa clearly hated her. At this time, Duke Sepra also arrived, but Yeltsin didn't come because he hates Petro. The mention of Lunaleni immediately sparked jealousy, and just like that, the Dukes started arguing again. The crowd was also in an uproar. Elisa's expression was gloomy, saying that he wanted to take the female lead away. But the female lead presented her gift first. It was enchanted with magic, which many people didn't believe. It was Duke Sepra who came out to testify. The two almost started arguing again. The Duke proudly showed off the gift he had received. The brooch was also enchanted by a magic user. The female lead hopes the people she truly cares about don't get hurt. This gift for Duke Jebelin had a purpose: to make him her model to promote her things. All of a sudden, Elisa was ignored. She wanted to teach the female lead a lesson. Then she dragged the female lead away. Previously, Elisa had tricked the female lead, saying that wearing this dress would get her together with Petro. As a result, at the banquet, the tricked female lead was dressed strangely and fled in embarrassment. Watching Elisa introduce her old acquaintances, the female lead thought to herself how she should teach these bad guys a lesson. Elisa praised the female lead with false sincerity. The other girls beside her started making sarcastic remarks. Overtly and covertly, they accused the female lead of cheating on the recent exam. Elisa pretended to be angry and stand up for the female lead. In reality, Wasn't she the one who said it? The female lead thought to herself, this acting is too terrible. If it were the past, the Camilla who liked Petro wouldn't have said anything. But now, the female lead wouldn't indulge them. She started to fight back. After all, their grades were all very poor. She immediately hit their sore spot, subtly saying they should enrich their minds. Elisa was very angry and wanted to question the female lead back. Facing Elisa's questioning, the female lead retorted, "Are you about to cry?" After all, what she's best at is using tears. And this sentence could prevent her from using crying to turn the situation around. And as for the female lead's acting, I am a professional. The cup was smashed by the female lead. The Duke heard the sound and rushed over. The Duke slowly approached Camilla. He saw the female lead with her head down, tears falling. The Duke asked what happened. The female lead was sobbing, tears streaming down her face. The female lead, with tears in her eyes, said to the Duke, "They said, thought that I cheated." The female lead's acting was realistic. She even said it was her fault for letting others misunderstand and for such rumors to spread. Saying this, she threw herself into the Duke's arms. The Duke held the female lead and asked who said it. The female lead pointed a finger. It was them. Duke Jebelin looked at his own daughter, calling her name. At this moment, Elisa still naively thought her father would stand up for her. But she only saw Duke Jebelin angrily questioning his own daughter about what she had done to his guest. Elisa was suddenly at a loss, looking at her father in horror. Elisa just stood there from a distance, watching them. She felt like her world was collapsing. Elisa didn't say anything more. She turned and left. The female lead thought to herself, "You're still too green to fight with me." Away from the venue, the female lead felt her mood improve. Suddenly, the female lead stopped in her tracks. In a glass case before her was a treasured sword. The female lead found it very familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere before. The female lead remembered. It was the person under the shade of the tree. Petro appeared, answering the female lead's question. "That is our first-generation family head, the one who created the family swordsmanship. And this sword is the guardian sword that the family head found." The female lead was very surprised. Not only are there divine beasts, but there's also a guardian sword. That's a treasured sword that also appears in ancient records. It chooses its own master and predicts the coming of danger. Only when its chosen master touches it will it react. Unfortunately, no one chosen by the sword has appeared to this day. Looking at the portrait before her, this sword, even the first-generation family head who brought this sword back, was not chosen. Petro had already heard about what Elisa did today. He comforted the female lead. "Are you all right?" However, the female lead's next sentence made Petro think he had misheard. The female lead said she was acting. "I just wanted to embarrass your sister. After all, I was bullied by her too many times before." Petro was very surprised. Looking at his expression, as expected, he was completely unaware of what Elisa had done to the female lead. Petro had thought the female lead and Elisa had a good relationship, but it didn't matter anyway. The female lead no longer had a reason to curry favor with Elisa. Looking at the female lead's bright smile, his heart seemed to ache a little. At this moment, Elisa walked over. She clenched her hands. She and her friends apologized to the female lead. She wanted to speak with the female lead alone. The two were silent in the hallway. Her mouth said sorry, but her fists were clenched tightly. The female lead couldn't help but laugh out loud, curious about what new tricks they were up to. Elisa's thoughts were seen through at once. The female lead looked unconcerned, saying, "I doubt you can do much anyway." Elisa was furious and yelled at the female lead. The enraged Elisa pushed the female lead down the stairs. It just so happened to be seen by Petro. Petro watched Camilla about to fall, very shocked. The pushed female lead was still smiling, letting him witness the real winner. Elisa looked at the female lead in disbelief, her heart pounding. The female lead, who had prepared for the fall, was very confused. Why doesn't it hurt? She opened her eyes to find herself lying in someone's arms. Petro asked with concern, "Are you all right?" The female lead replied, "Thanks to you, I'm fine." The female lead got off Petro, and he would give the female lead an explanation. Petro looked coldly at his sister. Elisa was shocked. Her own brother had never shown such an expression, and he was supposed to be on her side. A few days later, the Jebelin family sent a formal letter of apology, along with many precious gifts. Elisa was also grounded for a period of time and couldn't even go to school. The Salb Duke was very dissatisfied, muttering that Elisa's punishment was too light. Moreover, it was the first time she had seen Petro get so angry. This confused the female lead. The devastated Elisa was crying in her room. Looking at the large pile of things in front of her, the female lead suddenly didn't know how to handle them. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. The Salb Ducal House's library administrator, Jamie, brought books about the Guardian Sword. The female lead didn't expect there to be so many books on this topic. For a moment, the female lead felt like giving up. This matter weighed on the female lead's mind, so if she investigated personally, she could always find something. The sword and the portrait at the banquet were clearly something she had seen before. To understand, she had to start with the Jebelins. The female lead had asked Dalen. He only knew that person had died of natural causes. The specifics would depend on the records in related books. The female lead went to look for them herself and found a super large number of books, all recorded in an ancient language. A few days later, Petro noticed the female lead was no longer looking at maps, but at books. He had once studied the ancient language, and the ancient language was precisely what the female lead excelled at. This was Camilla's only interest, the ancient language, and she was at an advanced level. Jamie handed the last book to the female lead. Jamie said that besides himself, Ludwig also read them often. Meanwhile, Ludwig was training when he heard that Camilla wanted to see him. Ludwig, who was supposed to be commanding the next training session, directly dismissed the squad. Everyone couldn't believe their ears. He had dismissed all of them. The female lead, who was drinking tea, was a bit surprised. After all, she didn't expect Ludwig to arrive so quickly. And Ludwig was not quite what she had imagined before. Why hadn't she noticed earlier? Reminded by Ludwig, the female lead came back to her senses. At this time, the female lead finally asked about the real business, his thoughts on the books. And after Ludwig finished reading, what he knew was the location of the Guardian Sword. When the Empire was first established, an organization called Iba appeared. It claimed that as long as one followed Iba, one could obtain eternal life. Many people followed Iba for this reason. The eternal life Iba spoke of was the power to truly enjoy an undying life. Many people went crazy for it, but everything has a price. To obtain eternal life, one needed to sacrifice others. And the ones who were sacrificed were mostly the poor commoners. Conflict arose and war broke out. At this time, a person named Mars appeared and cut down the evil forces. And the Guardian Sword was Mars's sword. After the war ended, Mars vanished without a trace, and the Guardian Sword also disappeared. Afterward, no one could find the Guardian Sword, which was known as the sword that chooses its master. But in the end, only Gino found it. The female lead smiled and looked at Ludwig, so you know too. Jebelin found the Guardian Sword, but wasn't chosen. This is very strange. Actually, anyone interested in this could deduce the reason. It's just that everyone keeps silent about it. Because it's related to the Jebelin ducal family. Outsiders shouldn't meddle in others' private affairs. In the evening, the female lead came to the school auditorium. She planned to ask the person himself. The female lead got straight to the point. You are Gino Jebelin, aren't you? And the sword on the person before her was too familiar. Gino was very surprised that the female lead could see him and admitted that he was indeed himself. Gino looked at the female lead, feeling it was magical, and the female lead felt that his personality was different from what she had imagined. The female lead asked, only the master chosen by the sword can find that sword, but the person who brought the sword back was not its master. This means only one thing. The master chosen by the sword died. Gino had a twin brother. The Guardian Sword chose Gino as its master, but it pierced through his body. When they were young, the two brothers practiced swordsmanship. Gino was always the superior one, and Mihai, the eldest son, was much inferior in comparison. But as long as Gino was around, Mihai was not qualified to become the head of the family. At this moment, Mihai's mind wandered. He overheard a conversation nearby. The winner was naturally Gino, and he smiled, wanting to pull Mihai up, but Mihai refused. Finally, the two of them found the Guardian Sword, but Mihai saw nothing. The sword was something only Gino could see. He tried to draw the sword. Gino pulled it out. The sword was sparkling and beautiful. Having met its master, it made a sound. Mihai was stunned. It turned out only Gino could see it. Mihai wanted to take a look at the sword. Gino happily handed it over. But when the sword was in Mihai's hands, the light dimmed. The divine sword clearly preferred Gino. He wanted to take it back, but Mihai couldn't understand. Why did their parents' affection and everyone's praise all belong to Gino? Now, even the divine sword had chosen him. Why couldn't he have it? If only he wasn't there. Mihai thrust the sword into Gino's chest. Before he died, Gino was filled with disbelief. The one who killed him was his own brother. Just like that, he fell off the cliff. Since then, the Guardian Sword never shone again, and everyone thought it was Gino who returned. But their father knew in his heart. Even though he guessed everything, he didn't expose Mihai. He ultimately chose silence. because he couldn't bear to lose another child. Mihai was a good family head. He led the family well. His story was widely told, all under Gino's name. This matter is very interesting. They are remembered in this state, although he is also very angry. He curses Mihai every day. The female protagonist was very puzzled. Why pretend to be Gino for a lifetime? To be called by the name of the person he killed every day. Perhaps it was his punishment for himself. Seeing that he didn't have a good life afterward, Gino couldn't bring himself to hate him anymore. Besides, the matter was already in the past. The female protagonist was even more puzzled. If he had no regrets, why was he still here? It turned out Gino loved swords too much, so he couldn't leave. He had never met an evenly matched opponent. She couldn't even refute him. The female protagonist felt it was so unlucky. Gino was a swordsmanship genius and the founder of the family swordsmanship. He earned the title of swordmaster at the age of 19. Swordmasters are not common, but thinking of a few in her own family, it seemed to have become common. The female protagonist asked Gino, "Don't you want to properly wield a sword?" Ludwig's training ground. He heard that Camilla wanted to spar with him. Although he was surrounded by many masters, only Ludwig wouldn't treat her as a joke. Ludwig didn't understand why the female protagonist sought him out, but he agreed to it after his training was over. In an open area, the two began to prepare. Suddenly, the female protagonist regretted her decision. Why was she being nosy again? She wasn't an exorcist. She comforted herself. Briefly becoming a sword master, maybe Camilla would be happy. The female protagonist looked at Gino. "Are you ready?" And Gino didn't refuse. He directly possessed the female protagonist's body. "Ready." Ludwig nodded. Gino swooshed over and Ludwig blocked. He was very surprised by this strike. The two exchanged blows. Ludwig thought to himself, how could Camilla be like this? In swordsmanship, the two were able to spar with each other, evenly matched. This was the feeling Gino wanted. It ended, and the two did not determine a winner. Ludwig looked at Camilla. "You got some skills, huh?" Gino replied, but it wasn't a piece of cake. Although it was over, there was still some regret, but he was more or less content. Camilla collapsed directly onto the ground. The female protagonist felt like her whole body was about to fall apart. Gino was too excited and didn't consider Camilla. The female protagonist silently protested. If she did this kind of thing again, she wouldn't be human. The Duke was reprimanding Ludwig for training Camilla to the point of collapsing in bed. Who was being lectured by Duke Salb? The female protagonist wanted to pretend to be asleep. Unexpectedly, she heard Ludwig's name. The female protagonist quickly got up and stopped the Duke. She was the one who asked for it. It hurt so much she couldn't breathe. Her physical condition was worse than she had imagined. The Duke hugged the female protagonist with a pained heart. He said that Camilla had just gone through the banquet incident, and now that this happened, he was very worried. Hearing what the Duke said, the female protagonist was also very happy. It felt good to be cared for. Even though the female protagonist spoke up for Ludwig, the Duke still reprimanded him before leaving. As the door closed, Ludwig asked if Camilla was okay, and the female protagonist was fine now. He would rather be misunderstood than tell the truth. The female protagonist was both extremely grateful and apologetic towards him. This side was resolved. Meanwhile, on the other side, Gino was being scolded. Gino cowered and apologized with a guilty conscience. Suddenly, Gino pointed at them. "Who are you? Why should I apologize to you?" At this moment, the female protagonist stepped forward and answered, "They are like family to me. They can't be bullied." The two ghosts were very moved. Gino awkwardly walked over to apologize and thanked the female protagonist for giving him a satisfying and exhilarating spar. The female protagonist said it was fine as long as he was happy. She thought his wish had been fulfilled and he would leave. Who knew he had no intention of leaving at all? He even hoped for next time. Camilla came to Ludwig's room, asking him to try the pudding she made. This was her first time coming here. They didn't have much interaction before. Ludwig tasted the female protagonist's pudding. She asked if he had any questions. It had been a few days since their spar, but Ludwig hadn't asked her anything. Camilla, who had no talent for the sword, had displayed the Jebelin family's swordsmanship. He must have many questions. Ludwig replied to Camilla. Even if he asked the female protagonist, would she tell him? The female protagonist answered, of course. However, with his next sentence, Ludwig asked, "Would you answer truthfully?" This put the female protagonist in a difficult position. Ludwig must have seen through it, so there was no need to ask, but he didn't want to hear lies. The female protagonist smiled and apologized to Ludwig. He was very perceptive. The female protagonist planned to make pudding for him again next time. By chance, the female protagonist saw the baby's breath by the table. This was what the female protagonist had given him before. She didn't expect him to have kept it. Suddenly, Ludwig said he liked dried flowers. The female protagonist didn't understand why. Since there was nothing else, the female protagonist planned to leave. Ludwig walked to the flowers, gazed at them for a moment, and smiled. In the hallway, the female protagonist hummed a happy tune, thinking about making it for him again next time. Lappy approached the female protagonist, curious as to why she was coming from there. Speaking of pudding, Lappy was dissatisfied that there was none for him. He heard that the female protagonist had fainted during training. He told the female protagonist to rest well. But the female protagonist said that if Lappy could beat her in swordsmanship, she would make pudding for him. Lappy thought to himself, where did she get this confidence? Watching the two bicker as they walked away, Gino smiled from a distance. In the academy, the female protagonist held a check, her smile gradually turning devious. Yeltsin called her a rich lady from behind him. Yeltsin looked at the female protagonist's current state, feeling a bit helpless. Now she didn't even get angry when he teased her. Looking at Camilla, Yeltsin felt she was very impressive, able to face a murderous maniac alone. He wanted to say a few words to her, but couldn't bring himself to. Yeltsin asked what she was going to do with all that money. The female protagonist pointed to the check in her hand. This money? Yeltsin couldn't stand the female protagonist's cunning expression. Duke Sepper sent me the first month's sales revenue from the magic stones in the form of a check, and also magic brooches. Just the magic stones alone have made me a fortune. Just the magic stones alone earned her so much. Yeltsin didn't understand why the female protagonist was so obsessed with money. Only someone who has never experienced poverty would say that. And the female protagonist only came to the ducal house at the age of 7. Before that, the female protagonist lived a very poor life. Until one day, Camilla's mother found Duke Salb collapsed on the side of the road, and took this as an opportunity to form a bond with Duke Salb. Her kindness and beauty made Duke Salb fall for her. Eventually, the two entered the hall of marriage, but the female protagonist felt her mother only helped him because she saw he was rich. There must have been a reason. Yeltsin didn't expect it to be like that. The female protagonist planned to return this to Duke Sepper first. She had a better plan. Separate ducal house. Regarding the magic stones, problems would arise as demand grew. Duke Sepper suggested that the female protagonist run a merchant guild herself. The female protagonist was very surprised. Run myself? Duke Sepper knew the female protagonist was averse to making public appearances. He could introduce someone to pose as the guild master. The female protagonist thought this was a good suggestion. This check would become the foundational capital for her merchant guild. Yeltsin noticed that there were many strange things around the female protagonist. Gino was surprised that this guy could also see him. The female protagonist was speechless. Didn't I tell him not to come over? Hearing Camilla say this, Yeltsin wanted to help Camilla get rid of it. The female protagonist hurriedly explained, "They're all people I know. Shut up." The two glared at each other, sparks flying. At this moment, Layla walked over. She even brought dessert for the female protagonist. Layla glanced at the person next to her. This person's expression is so scary. The female protagonist was speechless with him. Now he didn't even glance at Layla. He clearly liked her so much before. In her past life, Layla's ability was like a tranquilizer, controlling Election's rampages. Now it was different. Maybe the plot had changed. Layla returned to her own thoughts. She wanted the female protagonist to try the dessert she made. The delicacies on the table were all the female protagonist's favorites. Looking at the dessert, the female protagonist said she was going to get fat from this. The female protagonist handed a portion to Yeltsin, but he turned his head and said he didn't like sweets. The female protagonist was confused. The dessert she brought before, didn't he eat them all? Yeltsin blurted out, "Isn't it because of you?" He hadn't finished speaking before his face turned red. He looked at her, hesitating to speak. The female protagonist thought to herself, he's really putting on an act. He's the one who should be getting fat. The female protagonist suddenly stuffed the cake into his mouth, but his face turned ashen. Does he really not like it? But at that time, because Cielo left, he ate all the desserts. I remember he really enjoyed them back then. What a strange guy. Layla watched everything that was happening. She didn't say anything, but it seemed she understood everything. Layla said the royal family was going to hold a hunting tournament. The female protagonist felt that the most difficult person in this world was the Empire's crown prince, Edesen Peblo. He possessed the golden hair and golden eyes passed down through the royal family for generations. He was the first in line to the throne, and that crown prince that sent the female protagonist a handwritten invitation. Since her previous life, it was well known that the crown prince hated Camilla. he would never send an invitation. Now he even sent someone to deliver it to the hands of the Camilla he once that hated so much. The female protagonist couldn't figure it out. The hunting tournament hosted by the Crown Prince. On that day, we took a carriage to the hunting tournament. The people attending the tournament were Duke Solb, Lappy, Ludwig, and me. Although she could go up, she couldn't just ignore it. Of course, the female protagonist had to sit next to Duke Solb. How about it? Jealous? Lappy said. They hadn't gone out together in a long time. Lappy didn't understand why the female protagonist was dressed like this. What's wrong with this? Lappy felt the female protagonist should be enjoying a tea party with the other young ladies. The female protagonist knew what he meant. Until the hunting tournament ended, the women would gather together to chat. The tea party was another kind of hunt. It was easy to destroy a person there. Rather than become the prey, it's better to be the hunter. She was going to catch a bear. Lappy was very surprised, but in front of the Duke, he didn't dare to make sound. They had arrived. Its grand scale and magnificent arrangements were unprecedented, all showcasing the host's power. At this time, the female protagonist saw Duke Jebelin. Duke Jebelin asked about the female protagonist's condition with concern. Elisa apologized to the female protagonist again. Although she didn't know if she was sincere with so many people around, the female protagonist decided to forgive her. Duke Jebelin was very happy with this situation. Two people came close to the female protagonist, thinking she was unwell somewhere. The two glared at each other in disgust. The female protagonist wondered when Yeltsin had arrived. Lappy looked gloomy, wondering when he had gotten so close with his sister. Yeltsin looked at Lappy. So this was the brother who spoke ill of him behind his back. The two started arguing again, giving the female protagonist a headache. But it was strange. Yeltsin was actually bickering with someone. He was the type to act without talking, and he even attended this event. Petro walked up to the female protagonist and asked if she knew how to shoot a bow. The female protagonist thought to herself she knew a little from filming. He pointed in a direction for the female protagonist where she could hunt. Behind her were the whispers of others. The female protagonist was so annoyed. Even if she wore a dress, they would still gossip behind her back. Your Highness. The female protagonist tiptoed away from the place of gossip, but the great king was at her feet. The female protagonist had to stop. It was supposed to be in the Duke's pocket. The female protagonist had put in her bag. From behind came a voice she didn't want to hear. It was indeed Edessin Peblo. The female protagonist didn't go to the last royal party. Edessin thought Camilla had been grounded. The female protagonist thought, what does my situation have to do with him? They clearly hated each other, yet he still came looking for trouble. This was why the female protagonist wanted to avoid him. He would never let go of someone he found to be an eyesore. He was very good at being two-faced, a very troublesome character. He heard the rumors about Camilla and found them very interesting. She can divine the past and predict the future. He wanted to know if she saw anything on him. The female protagonist answered calmly, I can't see it every time. But there's one thing I know, and that is about this hunting tournaments. That winner will not be you. In fact, Camilla had no information about the hunting tournament at all, but she knew one fact. The crown prince who participated in the hunting tournament would be seriously injured and collapse. How could an injured person possibly win? The female protagonist wanted him to hear her out. The angry crown prince walked towards the female protagonist, getting close to her. He said that every time he saw her, he had the urge to draw his sword. But now, he surprisingly didn't. After hearing this, the female protagonist felt he was a madman. Let's wait and see, he said, to see if your prophecy is accurate. The female protagonist didn't care what he said, just thinking that he was finally gone. The hunting tournament began. The two dukes left the field. The duke was a little worried about the female protagonist. The divine beast didn't want to go back and wanted to stay by the female protagonist's side. The duke was very happy. This way it could stay and protect the female protagonist. Although it was small, it was a divine beast after all. After it started, the female protagonist discovered something. Her magic brooches were selling well. Her business was booming. The magic brooches were expensive, but they were still very popular. How much money was it? The female protagonist really had to thank these young ladies. At this moment, someone came looking for the female protagonist, having something to say to her. But Yeltsin suddenly appeared and stepped on the person. He even said the person was blocking his way. The person scurried away. The female protagonist said this was why he was unpopular. He didn't even have a single brooch. Yelsian looked unconcerned. The female protagonist was very angry. Yelsian actually looked down on her treasure. Yelsian whispered, "I should have just accepted it." But the female protagonist didn't hear clearly. The two walked on the path, planning to hunt. After a while, the female protagonist regretted it. Hunting was so tiring. And looking at the cute rabbit in front of her, the female protagonist couldn't bring herself to do it. The female protagonist had already missed many, but she couldn't bear to strike. The female protagonist didn't understand how people could hunt without any qualms. Gino, beside her, found it amazing. She didn't even blink when dealing with ghosts, but it was different with small animals. However, the living and the dead were different to begin with. At this moment, someone interrupted. Edescent walked in front of the female protagonist. He saw her talking to herself and thought she was a madwoman. The female protagonist said she talks to the air. And why was he here? Edescent brought up the female protagonist prophecy. The female protagonist didn't expect him to actually believe it. Edescent looked at the female protagonist coldly. "Did you lie?" As a result, the female protagonist accidentally blurted out the truth. "You will be seriously injured." The female protagonist hurriedly covered her mouth. Edescent said, "How interesting. What is it that will injure me?" Just as the female protagonist said she was just spouting nonsense, a huge explosion occurred behind her. And the place where the explosion occurred was the most crowded area in the middle of the hunting ground. It was also where Lappy was. In an instant, the area was filled with the smell of blood. The female protagonist ran towards the center of the fire to find Lappy. Originally, the female protagonist shouldn't have cared. But now that he was in danger, the female protagonist was still very worried. In the fire, she called out Lappy's name everywhere. While searching, she suddenly heard Lappy call her name. She turned around, and he was right in front of her, safe and sound, healing others. Lappy was furious when he saw the female protagonist. It was so dangerous, yet the female protagonist still came over. The female protagonist went forward and hugged Lappy, thinking, "Thank goodness he's okay." Lappy was very confused, thinking the female protagonist might have been injured. And she, who had just appeared, was a little out of control emotionally, lost in memories. She didn't want to become an orphan again. Hearing what the female protagonist said, Lappy was even more confused. When did she become an orphan? The female protagonist, to cover up her words, said, "I will curse you, so you won't even rest in peace after you die." Lappy just smiled and looked at the female protagonist. "I will live longer than you." The female protagonist said coldly, "That won't do." Just as the female protagonist said she would live longer, someone pinched her face. Lappy looked at the female protagonist and told her to leave. "It's dangerous here. There are explosions everywhere." What if she got injured by an explosion on the way down? Lappy still let the female protagonist stay here, and Lappy had to treat the injured. He didn't have time to chat with her. The female protagonist also wanted to help. Lappy wouldn't let her, saying she would be in the way. Edescent watched them and smiled. After several more explosions, the surroundings quieted down. The situation was more serious than imagined. Many people were seriously injured in this accident. After the explosion stopped, people's screams were everywhere. The scene was simply too horrible to look at. Could it be that the Crown Prince was seriously injured because of this too? The injured people all flocked towards Lappy, who was casting healing magic. Meanwhile, the uninjured people centered around Edescent, the Crown Prince, gathered together, bringing the survivors scattered in various places to the outside. Ludwig, Petro, and Yelsian also joined the team to rescue the survivors. Because Yelsian could use healing magic, he also treated the injured. The female protagonist asked Yelsian, "Don't you find it strange? Such a serious explosion happened, yet no one has come. You should know there are many soldiers below the hunting ground, and to prevent accidents, mages and healers that have been waiting there since early morning. Such a serious explosion just happened, and there were also large and small explosions that continued for a while. Those who fled all ran towards the entrance of the hunting ground. The news should have already reached the people outside the hunting ground by now. At this moment, the divine beast suddenly became alert. Lappy blocked her way, telling the female protagonist to be careful. Edescent asked Ludwig what was happening. Ludwig told everyone present to draw their swords, because something was approaching. They were like zombies. What were they? Yelsian stood in front of her, telling the female protagonist to stay put. Ludwig told everyone to get ready. A battle was about to begin. Petro said, "They don't look like good people." Ludwig told Lappy to protect Camilla. Lappy nodded in agreement. With Ludwig's command, the fight began. Yelsian charged forward. Petro went too. What on earth was happening? The female protagonist couldn't bear to watch the bloody scene. Her heart was about to leap out of her chest. No matter what, she couldn't kill people. Where there's war, there's bloodshed. A group of unknown figures began to pour in continuously. In an instant, the hunting ground was filled with the smell of blood. Lappy looked at Camilla while healing others, asking if she was okay. But now the female protagonist couldn't lift her head, and her body wouldn't obey her. Gino analyzed from his side. They seem a bit strange. They don't react at all when attacked, whether they're cut by a sword or burned by fire. They don't even let out a scream, just tightly grip the swords in their hands, like puppets with their strings cut. If we cut off the leader's head, won't they stop moving? He looked at the female protagonist and asked, "Are you really going to just stand by and watch?" Think about it. Gino was right, but the female protagonist had to overcome her psychological barrier. Except for a few people, the rest were trembling. They couldn't even hold their swords. However, the people charging at the front were holding up well. But with enemies continuously pouring in, it was only a matter of time before they became exhausted. As far as she knew, they shouldn't have sent out so many invitations. Yet uninvited guests kept pouring in. The female protagonist called out to Gino. She had finally made up her mind to wield her sword. The worst that could happen was being bettered in for another 2 weeks. Then he wouldn't refuse. A man tried to flee. Just as he was about to be cut down, there was a clank sound. Someone was standing in front of him. It was Camilla. The female protagonist had lost consciousness. The one who swung the sword was Gino. Gino's martial skill was very high. He wasn't afraid right now. He was even a little happy. Petro saw the female protagonist out of the corner of his eye and was stunned. How could she? Jebelin's swordsmanship. He had never seen such perfect swordsmanship. Yeltsin couldn't believe it either. What was going on? When it came to swordsmanship, Milo was notoriously slow. Lappy reminded the female protagonist. They're all swarming towards Camilla. The others were also stunned. Although Petro had seen it once before, that swordsmanship still made it impossible for him to look away. Only Descend was acting normally. While fighting, they were all looking at the female protagonist. Only Descend reminded them not to be dazed. Some people were inspired by the female protagonist, clenched their fists, and joined the ranks. Lappy thought, they're all swarming towards Camilla. What if she gets hurt? At that moment, he heard a sound behind him. A monster was launching a sneak attack. It was Layla who saved him. She shouldn't have interfered. That would cause her to lose points. But if Lappy got hurt, Camilla would be sad. After all, they were related by blood. From now on, she wouldn't interfere again. Lappy was confused. Lappy thought, what on earth is that girl's deal? When the hunting ground was stained red with blood, the battle ended. Those things finally stopped coming. The female protagonist also collapsed to the ground from exhaustion. Now she needed to sleep for a while. The female protagonist slowly opened her eyes and found herself resting her head on Yelexin's lap. And now she didn't feel any pain at all. Before, even breathing had been difficult. It turned out to be Yeltsin, who had used magic to reduce her pain. She roughly understood the situation now. But why was she resting on this guy's leg with so many people watching? She had to get up quickly, but was pushed back down. And they had moved. The surroundings were so clean. There were no bodies either. But it seemed she had once again become the subject of others' gossip. They would surely say she was the palace lady who went crazy with a sword. Staying here might lead to another round of attacks. Idescend gave the order to go down. He thought about how quiet it was. Could it be that the people below were also attacked? And on the female protagonist's side, Yeltsin was going to carry the female protagonist away. This made the female protagonist very embarrassed. So many people were watching, but his skin was even thicker than hers. Back in the day, she was the queen of romantic comedies. But why did she feel so embarrassed now? The female protagonist still wanted to walk by herself, as long as she was near Yeltsin. He could cast magic, but Yeltsin said this was more convenient. Gino appeared and reminded the female protagonist to look behind her. Her brothers' faces were grim. Gino was gloating on the side. Not long ago, the two had argued over who would heal the female protagonist. Yelexin's magic was stronger, so Lappy didn't win. The female protagonist looked at Yeltsin, thinking he really was a rude and unlucky guy. She finally understood why Lappy hated Yeltsin so much. But then again, Lappy's pride was so strong. Why did he give in so obediently? It was strange. And why was Ludwig's expression so grim? A sudden scream caught the female protagonist's attention. She got down and was about to go take a look. The scene before her left her speechless. Below were all corpses, and not a single one was intact. Their deaths were extremely gruesome. But what startled the female protagonist more than that were all the ghosts. They looked very pained, and it seemed they didn't know they were already dead. Someone covered the female protagonist's eyes. Yeltsin told her not to look and to go back for treatment. The female protagonist said with a sweat drop that she wasn't dead. Layla was crying as if she had already died. The female protagonist sighed, thinking about the second day of the hunting competition. A storm was brewing in the Empire. Everything that happened at the hunting competition quickly spread throughout the Empire. The families of the victims demanded an explanation from Edescent. Because the casualties included distinguished guests from various countries, the impact was huge. The after-party was canceled, and just like that, the Crown Prince's birthday party came to a terrible end. Layla was glad the female protagonist was okay. When she heard the female protagonist was at the scene, she was very worried. After the pain-reducing magic wore off, she couldn't get out of bed for a long time. No one knew about the explosion. Someone must have used magic to block the sound. The female protagonist thought about how the people waiting outside the hunting ground said they heard no explosion at all. Some speculated that magic was used, but even the mages didn't notice it. Moreover, when the soldiers went to the scene to collect the bodies to investigate the enemy, the bodies had already disappeared, vanished completely. This couldn't be understood with common sense. But their target was clear, the Crown Prince. At this time, Dorman came, saying someone wanted to see her, and it was someone sent by the royal family. Edescent sent many gifts. It took a long time to move them all. There was also a letter. Miss Camilla. The letter was handed to the female protagonist. The female protagonist thought, why does this letter feel like it's emitting a dark aura? The letter described the female protagonist's disheveled appearance, saying it was the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. The female protagonist tore up the letter directly. Dorman was shocked to see this. Fortunately, the person from the royal family had left. The female protagonist didn't want to open his gifts either. She felt they were definitely not anything good. A few days later, the female protagonist was much better, recovering faster than before. Her father was out. It felt like she hadn't seen them in a long time. She didn't know when that meeting would end. Because of what happened on the day of the hunting competition, meetings have been held for several consecutive days. But so far, no clues about the culprits have been found. The motive was obvious. It was the Second Prince's faction, which had always been targeting Crown Prince Edescent. Currently, they're the prime suspects. But for now, it's just suspicion. There's no physical evidence. They can't just conclude that the Second Prince's faction was behind this based on suspicion alone. The female protagonist asked what Lappy was doing. He hadn't come out of his research lab for a week. He had been staying there ever since returning from the hunting competition. The female protagonist sighed, thinking, it looks like this guy is at it again. The female protagonist knocked on his door, but there was no response. It didn't matter if he didn't open the door. The female protagonist had her ways. Coming in, she saw a haggard-looking Lappy, who complained that she had let herself in. Seeing that he looked like he hadn't eaten or bathed in a week, looking all sloppy, the female protagonist retorted directly. Hearing the female protagonist's words, he felt a little guilty. The female protagonist had also brought food for Lappy, but he refused to eat it, telling her to take it back. The room was also a mess. But weren't those all books about healing magic? The female protagonist went through so much trouble to bring it, but he didn't appreciate it at all. The worst part was that he told the female protagonist to get out. The female protagonist punched him. An unruly brother is just spoiled. One punch should do the trick. If one punch isn't enough, then another one, until he behaves. Sure enough, Lappy succumbed to force and started to behave. He started making excuses, saying he was just about to go take a bath. Before leaving, he even told the female protagonist not to touch his things. The female protagonist wasn't interested in someone else's pigsty, but she would find someone to help him clean it up. Finally, it was clean and much easier on the eyes. The room was tidied up and fresh food was brought, but why wasn't he out yet? Finally, he came. Looking at her brother, the female protagonist thought, he's finally back to normal. She told him to eat, but he was unwilling to eat again, feeling that the female protagonist must think he was ridiculous. Lappy was gritting his teeth there, unwilling to accept that his magic was inferior to elections. It was indeed jealousy. Even though he knew how amazing he was, he still threw a tantrum like this every so often. Last time it was Ludwig, this time it was Layla and Yeltsin. The female protagonist really felt a headache coming on. The female protagonist said, I really almost died last time. He thought she was talking about the incident at the venue. But the female protagonist was talking about the incident with Professor Jebelin. Jebelin was confused. That's not what the female protagonist said last time. The female protagonist specifically emphasized that it was because of this magic bracelet. When he grabbed her by the neck, the female protagonist completely lost the ability to fight back. Without this bracelet, he would never have dared to do such a thing. It was this bracelet that gave him the courage. She had also said before that without her brother, she would be an orphan. In other words, it was because she had her brother that she dared to be so bold. He didn't say anything after hearing that, but he calmed down a lot. In the end, Lappy was persuaded and finally started eating. Looking at Lappy eating heartily in front of her, it seemed he was really hungry. Finally, a success. Coaxing people is also a skill. Layla was packing up in the classroom. Someone called for her to go back with them. She happily agreed and turned to leave. Someone placed something on his desk, smiling. He whispered faintly, "From now on, let's play an interesting game." All right, he thought. How long do I have to keep doing this kind of thing? His hand hurt so much. To survive their hands, he could only run faster. But he lost. Damn it, he thought. I have to go quickly. Layla helped him pick up his books, but he said there was no need. He suddenly said, "Don't you recognize me? I'm Kevin Bryan, the target of school-wide bullying." He told Layla not to meddle, or she would become the next target. Saying that, he left again, muttering that he had to hurry. The female protagonist thought, it seems he's completely done for. This academy, there really wasn't a single satisfactory thing about it. Kevin Bryan was a student ostracized by the entire academy. He was born to a baron's family that had a title, but no power and no money. Ostracism often has a mastermind, someone who leads the bullying from behind, changing targets as if playing a game. That person was the most powerful in the academy, the student council president, Melise. Gino was shocked to hear this. The female protagonist said that Yeltsin and Petro wouldn't do such a thing. But as the student council president, she did. The other students just stood by and watched. The reason was simple. Because they weren't the ones being ostracized. Because they weren't the target of the bullying. Gino asked the female protagonist to step in and help, but she refused. Because that student would voluntarily drop out. He would eventually leave the academy because he couldn't bear the bullying. And the ones who persuaded him to drop out were his parents. The daughter of a family with no money or power. The other student council members were also children of nobles. They didn't dare to report it either. At this time, someone called her. The student council president, Melise, appeared. Because of the competition, many students wanted to express their gratitude to the female protagonist. So the student council decided to step in personally and present an award to the female protagonist. This bouquet was also personally prepared by her. There were also many gifts. She asked the female protagonist to accept them, but the female protagonist just smiled faintly. Melise was startled. This girl is smiling. The female protagonist refused the bouquet. Besides, the female protagonist didn't accept flowers from just anyone. She just didn't want to accept her flowers. Melise trembled with anger. After she left, the flowers were trampled underfoot. The people beside her didn't dare to make a sound, seeing her go crazy. But because of her status, they didn't dare to touch the female protagonist. Although she didn't dare to touch the female protagonist, she had a new target. When Layla returned to the classroom, she found many small wooden slips on her desk. She opened one to look. Laughter came from all around. The words written inside were not nice. They were all taunts directed at her. However, she said happily, "So everyone knows me so well. Thank you all for your concern." The people beside her were dumbfounded. She even sniffed her clothes. There was no smell. It was probably because of the crops. Seeing that this method didn't work, they turned to other things. As a result, the female protagonist thanked their family. This way, her mother had a job. They were all confused. The female protagonist had already guessed the next target. She wondered what would happen this time. According to the original story, after Layla became Elise's target, Petro and Yeltsin would help her. Because of those two, the truth about the school bullying would come to light, and the student council would be disbanded. The reason those two would do that was because they had feelings for Layla. But now, she didn't know how things would develop. The female protagonist could only wait and see. Their bullying of Layla became more and more rampant. Not only would Layla suddenly have water splashed on her by classmates, she would also be deliberately tripped by them, scraping her knees. The bullying drama was escalating. Strange, it wasn't this bad before. It seems she can no longer stand by and watch. Gino, the female protagonist, has a favor to ask. At first, Melise just thought this was interesting, and there happened to be someone she disliked. So she gave a try. But as things developed, she had an unexpected gain. The fear of potentially becoming a target at any moment. The sense of relief that it wasn't her. This game bestowed absolute power, a fascinating power. she could only continue. Layla could still manage a smile. She asked, "Lucy's, I heard you received Miss Camilla's help at the hunting competition. It seems you're the most suitable person. Go bring Layla to that place." Lucy's hesitated. Malise was displeased. In the end, he went. She was going to prepare a special plan for Layla, an extreme plan that would make her suffer immensely. Layla recognized the person in front of her, Vice President Lucy's. He said, "I heard you're being bullied." He said the student council would help her. Layla went with him. Gino saw everything and planned to tell the female protagonist. Layla didn't understand. The student council said they would help her. They brought her to the student council president's villa. But now Malise was mocking the female protagonist. Layla asked what they were doing. They were all mocking Layla. Malise wanted her to kneel. The people beside them started to make a move. Seeing the outstretched hands, Layla voluntarily knelt. Layla was still naively thinking, "Did I do something wrong?" She apologized to them. Malise was not satisfied with Layla's reaction. She wanted to cut her hair to give Layla a short haircut. She was going to cut it herself. Why are you doing this to her? What did she do wrong? A long time ago, Layla actually knew very well why they bullied her. They snatched her doll and tore it apart. They even said, "Since it's already broken, let's break it completely." However, Malise said, "Does there have to be a reason?" To her, this was just a game. There was no particular reason, just because she was an easy target. Their game was to destroy her precious things. So, facing their actions, she could only pretend not to know. Malise approached with the scissors. Won't someone help her? And the person who had always been protecting her, the person who made her smile. At this moment, the female protagonist appeared. She asked Layla, "Are you really okay?" Layla looked at the female protagonist, lowered her head, and said, "Help me." The one who protected her was Camilla. Her eyes slowly turned red. She pleaded, "Camilla, help me." Just like usual, just like a long time ago. The first time Layla saw Camilla was when she was 6 years old. The child with very beautiful eyes who had just moved to our neighborhood. Although the clothes she wore were shabbier than mine, and orphans, her face was like a princess from a fairy tale. Layla invited her friends to play with her, but her friends didn't want to play with her. Layla didn't understand. They just found her a bit off-putting. Layla noticed Camilla was always looking this way, but after they made eye contact, she would turn her head away. That was how they first met. After that, she often saw Camilla. She would always stare at us playing, but never spoke to us. Layla walked up and asked for Camilla's name. The two introduced themselves. She complimented Camilla's name, and Camilla just stared blankly. She smiled at Camilla. "Will you play with me?" "Really?" Camilla was very happy. The child, as beautiful as a princess, became even more beautiful when she smiled. And so, they became friends. One day, her head was hit by a rock. Someone was bullying her. He said all orphans are beggars. After that, the children who played with me just yesterday began to change. I don't know what they heard, but they suddenly started mocking me. They even called her a thief. She clenched her fists and started fighting with them. But she couldn't win. At that moment, their heads were all hit by rocks. Camilla had saved her with a slingshot. They all ran away in fear. Camilla said, "The more you cry, the more they'll bully you. Because people hate crybabies." She told herself not to cry. To her, Camilla was a really good friend who could make her forget her pain. One day, she gave Camilla an apple. Camilla wanted to take the apple home for her mother to eat. She was very envious that Camilla had a family, and their mother-daughter relationship seemed very good. Camilla was now going to take it to her mother. The two of them parted ways. She felt it was a bit of a pity. They hadn't played their game today. Anyway, as long as she gave the apple to her mother, she could come play with her. The day she planned to go find Camilla, she finally found out what kind of situation her princess-like friend was in. Her mother thought Camilla had stolen the apple. Hearing that voice, her whole body stiffened. When Camilla started to explain, her mother got even angrier. Her mother believed that she never should have given birth to the female lead. Camilla seemed to have long been accustomed to such situations. She didn't shed a single tear, and the other person was actually a witch. The next day, she gave the remaining apples to Camilla, telling her to eat them herself. But Camilla said she couldn't do that, because it would break her heart. Camilla had clearly told me not to cry, but I still shed tears. Not long after that, Camilla suddenly left. But before the village had time to miss her, her own life also underwent a change. Layla thought their connection had ended there, until they met again. The female lead decided to help Layla and walked in. She asked what they were doing. Malise turned to look at the female lead, but said nothing. The female lead domineeringly said, "You're on my radar now." The man couldn't believe what the person before him was saying. Cater from the Magic Tower's leadership. Starting today, the Magic Tower will terminate all transactions with the Marquis household. The transactions between the Magic Tower and the man's family had been going on for so long, and now they were suddenly cut off. The reason was actually a request from the Magic Tower's partner. The man guessed it was the Solve family. The Gayful Marquis household They were the only family that distributed magic stones. But recently, the Saab ducal household had suddenly become the new magic stone distributor. Moreover, they were providing top-tier magic stones, GA2. The Marquis couldn't understand why the Saab ducal household wanted to intervene in this transaction. At this moment, Cater reminded him about a strange video of his daughter that had been circulating recently. Just as Cater left, someone hurried over, telling the Gayful Marquis to look at the image on the recording stone, and his daughter was bullying others at school. The Gayful Marquis couldn't believe that was his own daughter before him. In a fit of rage, he slapped the recording sphere away, wanting to capture the person who spread this video. However, the person who spread this video was Miss Camilla. Melise was now receiving the exact same treatment she had given to others. People outside were gossiping about her. The female lead just watched from a distance. Not long ago, the female lead had rescued Layla from the bullying. It wasn't difficult. The female lead solved everything with a single sentence. Because the female lead knew how to use a sword, and because of what happened at the hunting tournament, they all stayed far away from the female lead. The female lead obtained a video of Melise and the other student council members bullying their classmates. At that time, they still looked completely unconcerned. But the female lead threatened that this video would follow them until they started working or got married. Only then did they become afraid. And the female lead would let the whole world know what kind of people bullies are. Because behind the female lead was the Saab family. No one dared to provoke the female lead. The female lead made them cut ties with Melise. Then, our female lead did a little trick, making it so only Melise's figure appeared in the video. Layla analyzed that Melise's family was powerful, after all, and should resolve this quickly. But the female lead had already thought of this aspect. The thing the female lead possessed could keep the Gayful Marquis too busy to handle it. The female lead used the magic stones to unite with the parents of the other bullies, shaking the Gayful Marquis' business. The female lead didn't hide what she had done, because whether they knew or not, it had no effect on the female lead. Layla wondered what Melise would do, but even the female lead couldn't guess this. The female lead didn't know Melise's fate either. She had only laid the groundwork, just like Melise had done. After doing all this, the female lead didn't bother with anything else. After all, she didn't want to meddle in other people's business. The female lead told Layla what to call the current situation. Layla followed the female lead's lead and asked what it was. This situation is called reaping what you sow. The female lead was running quickly down the hallway. Petro and Yeltsin were walking together. The female lead went up and gave an elbow strike. Petro, who was there, was stunned. Yeltsin didn't understand why the female lead hit him. Of course, it was because they didn't follow the plot, making things so hard for the female lead. A group of children ran over happily, and the female lead and Layla were here. Layla was happily holding a little girl. As for why the female lead was here, we have to go back to not long ago. Layla told the female lead that if she didn't know what major to choose, she could go to a club. The female lead didn't have a major she liked yet. She could give it a try. The clubs were specially designed for people like the female lead. The academy has many clubs, so even if you don't attend major classes, as long as you put in enough time at a chosen club, it could be counted as attending class. Layla also joined a club. She's in the community service club. After hearing this, the female lead walked away immediately. But then the female lead heard there was acting involved, so she agreed to come. But now the female lead regretted it a little. As expected, the most popular person was Layla. The female lead hadn't expected that Petro would also appear behind her. He was busy enough with his major classes, yet he still had time for club activities. And he had only joined recently too. The female lead thought about it and found it understandable. After all, he used to frequently join clubs that Layla was in, trying to win her favor. The female lead thought to herself, could it be that he's finally developed feelings for Layla? The female lead always felt he was mocking her, saying she and Layla weren't suited to be friends. Petro thought the female lead had decided to join this club. In reality, the female lead was just visiting. Petro smiled and looked at the female lead. There's still hope, isn't there? The female lead didn't quite understand what he meant. The children spread out with the club members, playing their favorite games. The female lead was just watching from a distance. At this moment, a little boy named Leo came over and asked the female lead if she could read to him. The female lead opened the book and looked at it. Petro came in looking for Layla and found the female lead playing the role of Snow White's stepmother. This startled Petro. The female lead glanced at the book again and began playing a new role. Petro realized the female lead was actually reading a storybook to the children. They all knew the story of Princess Lulu. But was the content of that story originally so suspenseful? The female lead was performing with intense concentration. The children below were all scared to tears. The female lead suspected she was being too dramatic. The children below were too immersed. The female lead's gaze was drawn to a teddy bear. Layla watched the female lead, praising her wonderful acting. Petro felt like she had become a different person. And the female lead thought, honestly, why are there so many ghosts no matter where I go? At night, the children were all asleep. As the clock ticked, the teddy bear actually started to move. At this time, the female lead was sleeping. Doorman had just closed the door. Someone was approaching from a distance. Doorman's expression turned serious. The person in front of him was the sole manager, Habel. When Doorman was a high-level manager, Habel was just a low-level menial worker. He disdainfully asked what he was doing here. It turned out he was here to ask the female lead for help. Doorman went, "Oh, so that's it." He put his hand on his shoulder. "Lord Reaper, please go ahead." The female lead looked at the person before her and wondered, who is this? Doorman very happily introduced him to the female lead. He is one of the sole managers. The female lead started to take off her shoe. "This is Doorman's superior?" Habel was confused. "I'm not," before he could finish his sentence. He saw the female lead holding her high-heeled shoe, saying she had something to say. Habel instantly realized he was about to get hit. It turned out he was looking for the female lead to help him persuade a ghost. The female lead got angry. "Who told you to put her hands down?" The female lead was truly speechless. How could he be so sure she would help? Doorman asked the female lead to listen, but she didn't want to. There was nothing in it for her. Doorman started mentioning the ghosts around the female lead. The female lead compromised. Habel began to explain the matter. Someone had been designated as the next guardian deity, specifically to protect children. In life, he had dedicated his entire life to the children of the orphanage, but he passed away 2 months ago. So logically, he should have gone back with Habel, but for some reason, he was unwilling to leave. The female lead thought he probably didn't want to become a god, but if that's the case, he will fade into nothingness. If a designated ghost doesn't leave the mortal world and resist their duty, they will fade into nothingness, because only then can a new candidate be chosen. And Habel couldn't go to the place where he was. The teddy bear patted the girl's head and covered the child who had kicked off their blanket. It had just finished tidying the bookshelf. Suddenly, it heard the door open and started pretending to be a doll. And the female lead was looking for him. Luckily, the female lead said she forgot the gifts for the children and came back. The female lead showed a wicked smile. "Just come with me obediently, director-teacher." The female lead looked at the teddy bear. Staying silent won't solve the problem. At that time, the female lead had noticed something was inside the teddy bear doll. When the girl was crying, the teddy bear had patted the girl's arm, but she didn't expect it to be the director. The female lead threatened the director. "I heard that reapers coming in and out of the orphanage isn't good for the children. If the director doesn't speak up, the female lead is going to call the reaper." The teddy bear finally reacted. The female lead watched the change before her in surprise. The director finally came out. The director explained that he was afraid it would affect the children, which is why he didn't let the reaper come, and he was unwilling to leave. The female lead asked, "Even knowing you'll fade into nothingness, you still want to stay here?" The director said he had no choice. Those children needed him, but someone who is already dead can only take care of them for a short time. The other teachers here can also take good care of the children. Would the director rather fade into nothingness than trust the person he chose? The director denied it. He just couldn't rest assured. But what exactly could he not rest assured about? It turned out he was worried about his son. The orphanage director, Heeman, wanted to reduce the food budget. The people below were all shocked. Not just the food budget, but the clothing budget was also too high. But these were all the former director's requirements. He said that everything the children used and ate had to be the best. Heeman heard this and wanted to change it. He said the orphanage was not a charity, and every expense had to be reported to him. If anyone tried to object, he fired them directly. When he saw a child fall down the stairs, he would get very annoyed. Seeing the child's teary eyes, he showed not a shred of sympathy. "My mother treated me, her own son, no differently than the children in the orphanage. The food, the clothes, and the love I received. Everything was the same as the orphanage children, because I was her biological son. Sometimes my turn would even be last. Everyone else treated me like an orphan with no parents. Before she died, his mother handed the orphanage over to Heeman, but he couldn't understand his mother's actions. The female lead felt what he was doing was very normal. The director thought it wasn't normal, but putting herself in his shoes, the female lead would do the same. She was great, but who would like a parent who cares more about other children than them? And in the eyes of others, she was an excellent person. But from the son's perspective, that must have been the worst. The female lead asked the director, "Does he know that you love him?" The director said she loved her son very much. Although love between family members doesn't need to be said, she had to say it out loud for Heeman to know. The director thought that as a mother, she had fully expressed her love for her son. She would encourage her son for getting a perfect score of 100. But other children could already write all the characters. She didn't notice her own son. She wanted to make delicious food here as a reward. The director asked, "If I let Heeman know that I love him, will he stop ruining the orphanage?" The female lead thought he probably would. The director asked the female lead for a favor. Heeman was irritably revising the expenses. The things the female lead wanted also arrived: a box and the orphanage operation plan written by Heeman. Not long ago, the female lead had already thought of something she needed that could threaten Heeman. If all else failed, she would threaten Heeman and have him removed from his position as director. But the female lead found that this wouldn't work. The female lead arrived at the orphanage. Heeman was very welcoming, but the female lead was here for a reason. The female lead started bluffing that she had a good relationship with the former director. Heeman couldn't believe it. His mother and the Saab family clearly had no connection at all. It was also the female lead's first time at the orphanage. The female lead had something for him. After handing over the box, the female lead left. Without even having a cup of tea, the female lead said he didn't need to see her out. He didn't understand what it was. He slowly opened it to find some miscellaneous items. A box was labeled treasure, son's first lost tooth. Inside were all of Heeman's childhood things. Looking at these items, he thought they had all been thrown away. He never thought they were hidden away. Heeman was scolding the kitchen staff to be frugal with expenses. The female lead listened from outside, speechless. Why did the director keep staring at him? The director asked the female lead why nothing had changed. She thought to herself, "I still can't leave." The female lead felt she didn't understand her son. The female lead told her to observe a little more. The female lead looked at her worries and felt she didn't understand her son at all. If Heeman didn't care about the children, he absolutely could not have written such a plan detailed enough to support them until adulthood. If we continue in the same way, the money will run out quickly. Although his mother did it out of love for the children, he wants to take care of the children in his own way. Giving them love is certainly important, but what's more important is to let them learn to stand on their own. In order to help the children when they need it, all other expenses must be reduced. But leave the lights on the stairs. It's too dark, and the children will fall when they run around. The places where the children often walk need to be brighter. He didn't know about any of this. The director felt proud of him. The director agreed to leave. It turned out he had his own plan. Without the female lead, she wouldn't have known. She was very grateful to the female lead. She and the Reaper left. Before leaving, she said to the female lead, "I'll leave the orphanage children in Camilla's care." The female lead was shocked. Just as she was about to say something, they left. The female lead stood there and asked Dorman. Abel wasn't his superior at all, but the female lead thought she probably wouldn't see that guy again anyway. The little girl felt the teddy bear was different now. Layla asked the female lead if she wanted to join the community service club. The female lead would only fulfill the time required by the academy and then quit. Layla was happy just to have the female lead by her side. As for why the female lead changed her mind, it was because all the others were clubs related to the daily lives of nobles. This place was better than that. Besides, she had been entrusted with a task. And after all, he had become a god. There's no benefit in making an enemy of a god. And she was worried about Leo. Of course, Layla didn't need to know this. Layla was going to tell the club members about this. Their club had few members. The female lead thought this was normal. After all, not many people would be interested in community service. But Layla said that wasn't a big problem, because there were still people who wanted to join the club. And Yeltsin had joined too. The female lead couldn't imagine it. One day, Yeltsin heard that the female lead had joined the community service club. He found it incredible. And according to Layla, their club was actually very popular. Not long ago, Petro joined. After hearing this, Yeltsin was stunned. Layla continued to add fuel to the fire. They even went to the orphanage together. And the two of them not only played with the children, but also read to them. Finally, Yeltsin asked with a fierce expression, "Are there any spots left?" She was very happy. He took the bait as expected. Another new member. The female lead carried the divine beast to the warehouse. It was cleaner than she had thought. She was going to donate a lot of things to the orphanage, including things from her two brothers. They were all in used items anyway. As for money, of course, she had to save where she could. After all, both of them had agreed. The female lead explained the situation to them. Ludwig agreed. Lappy also had no objections. In his imagination, the female lead was like this. The female lead was dissatisfied. Lappy, what's with that look? He wanted someone else to do the organizing. But the female lead just wanted to see if there was a diary or something similar. The female lead couldn't believe these things were like new. This box had a preservation spell cast on it, and it was personally commissioned from the magic tower. The female lead thought, as expected of a ducal household, the female lead wanted to donate everything. Suddenly, she found something, an image pearl. The female lead picked it up, very puzzled. Dalen saw it and looked like she wanted to say something, but stopped. She said nothing. It had no magic. I'm really curious. What kind of video would be stored in a warehouse? At this moment, DeWong suddenly cried out. DeWong actually wanted it. It infused magic into it. As soon as it finished, it collapsed on the ground. Dalen was shocked to learn that a divine beast could also input magic. Then, the female lead wanted to watch the video. Dalen's expression was very unnatural. It was Ludwig as a child. He slowly walked forward. A woman was constantly encouraging him. She was Ludwig's mother. The female lead looked in amazement at the former duchess. She was the former duchess and also Ludwig's mother. To clear her mind, she embarked on a journey alone. However, along the way, her carriage overturned and she fell off a cliff along with it. In the end, not even her body was found. So this is what she looked like. The female lead was watching intently. Dalen kept calling out to the female lead, asking what was the matter. Dalen saw that the organizing was almost done and was about to leave. The female lead put the sphere down. She was still puzzled as to why that thing was here. Is it a sign of father's care for my mother? Or it was put away out of respect for the remarriage? Dalen clearly knows something, but she still claims she doesn't know anything. Camilla noticed something was off about her. Dalen had been avoiding her gaze. The only thing Camilla was sure of now was Dalen. Her acting is really terrible. I really don't know how she became the head of the Black Shadows. Of course, Camilla didn't want to press the issue. Seeing her so troubled, Camilla didn't have the heart to question her further. And so they left. Layla looked at the things in front of her in astonishment. Camilla thought the children would definitely love the things she was going to give them. They were all wrapped in gift boxes. Plus, these were gifts from the swordmaster, Ludwig, and Lappy, who was showing great promise in magic. Even adults would probably want such gifts. Camilla looked at the person before her and asked if he had really joined this club. It turned out to be true. Camilla couldn't believe it. For a person with such a personality to be doing charity work. Yelsian was very dissatisfied with Camilla's reaction. As they were chatting, Petro told them to go inside. Camilla wondered why he was here again. Didn't he have classes with the swordmaster? After entering, she found quite a few people here. The person in charge said these people were from the temple. They often came here to do charity work. A little boy spotted Camilla and called her witch sister. Yelsian was surprised. He said the child could see Camilla's true nature at a glance. Camilla was angry and wondered what was wrong with him. She felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Even the children called her that. Camilla secretly made a resolution. Next time, she had to get rid of this title. Just then, someone walked over. She knew of Camilla and greeted her. She had heard about Camilla from the children. Her name was Rania. At that moment, Camilla noticed her bracelet was the one worn by the former duchess. That kind of sapphire bracelet was not common. Camilla had once asked Dalen about it. The duchess's bracelet looked very special, and this bracelet was a gift from the duke to the duchess when young Master Ludwig was born. It was also the last work made by a famous artisan before his death, because that artisan pursued uniqueness. So he never made similar pieces, especially that sapphire, which was the same color as young Master Ludwig's eyes. They had searched the entire continent back then to find it. Camilla asked about the origin of the bracelet. Rania said her mother had given it to her with her own hands. Camilla was shocked to hear this. Other members of the temple called for Rania to leave. Rania thus bid her farewell. Camilla thought, see you next time. Yelsian asked Camilla what was wrong, but Camilla just answered that it was nothing. In truth, Camilla was already suspicious. She looked too much like the Duke. Even if you said they were father and daughter, no one would doubt it. Back at the Duke's mansion, Dalen didn't understand why Camilla always wanted to watch this video. Camilla asked Dalen. She said she saw someone wearing that bracelet and asked if she believed her. Dalen asked what? Camilla thought she hadn't heard and asked again. As a result, Dalen became very agitated. She thought Camilla had found the Duchess. But what Camilla saw was a girl of a similar age to herself, and the girl said her mother gave her the bracelet. Camilla didn't understand why she would ask that. She was clearly hiding something, but she was unwilling to tell Camilla. There must be some hidden reason. Camilla started asking Gino if he had ever seen twins. Specifically, the kind where one is alive and the other is dead. But he had never heard of such a thing. But Camilla had seen a woman a while ago and later discovered another person who looked exactly like her. Just then, someone was about to enter. It was Rub. After coming in, he looked around everywhere. Camilla asked what was wrong. He said it was nothing, just that he heard Camilla talking to someone. She thought to herself that she needed to be more careful next time. After Camilla denied it, he thought he might have misheard. He delivered a list of nobles. It was the invitation list Camilla had asked him to organize last time. Camilla had almost forgotten about it. Her birthday party was to be held in half a month. This birthday was particularly significant because the original Camilla would always die before her next birthday arrived, and at her last birthday party, she even ran away crying because Petro rejected the invitation. Camilla thought that this time, it should go smoothly without Petro messing it up. Wait, the Crown Prince is on the list? Why would that guy be on here? Camilla asked Rub if the Crown Prince should be invited too. The answer was yes. When a ducal household holds an event, they are obligated to send an invitation to the royal family. However, they might not necessarily come after receiving it. That's right, Camilla thought. Why would the Crown Prince come? In the blink of an eye, her birthday arrived. Camilla was in her formal dress. She looked up and saw someone. This was truly exasperating. The Crown Prince had come, and he offered his blessings to Camilla. Camilla was complaining endlessly in her mind. Why did this guy actually show up? Since when did he start accepting invitations like this? And doesn't he hate me? He asked Camilla if she still knew who he was. He thought Camilla didn't know who he was. His words made Camilla very confused. He suddenly said that wasn't it. Could it be that she didn't like the gift he sent? It turned out Camilla had forgotten to reply. Camilla explained that because she hadn't been feeling well recently, she wasn't able to reply to him. Seeing that Aid-san was clearly unconvinced, Camilla suddenly put on an act, pretending to be weak. As a result, the Crown Prince guessed at once that Camilla must not have opened the gift. Camilla replied, "But that's a gift from your highness. How could I dare to be picky about it?" Suddenly, he leaned closer to Camilla, startling her. He stated very clearly, "You definitely didn't look." Camilla was still being stubborn, insisting she had looked. At this moment, he suddenly said, "The smile you show when you lie is the most beautiful. So beautiful it's irritating." He even told Camilla to only lie to him in the future. His approach made Camilla continuously back away. Carelessly, she twisted her ankle. Just as she was about to fall, someone caught her from behind. Looking up, she saw it was Yeltsin. He shot a glance at the Crown Prince. The two were caught in a terrifying atmosphere. Camilla felt that this was a meeting between two madmen. Yeltsin looked at the Crown Prince coldly, and the Crown Prince's gaze wasn't very friendly either. At this moment, Camilla suddenly grabbed his wrist, breaking the tense atmosphere. Camilla intended to leave. She grabbed him and left. Yeltsin was still asking all sorts of questions beside her. Camilla just wanted to leave right now. Watching their retreating figures, the Crown Prince revealed a smile. On Camilla's side, Yeltsin asked her what he had said, but Camilla said she wanted to live a little longer. Yeltsin didn't quite understand what she meant. Camilla thought to herself, "If you want to die, go die on your own. Don't say things that slander the royal family while I'm here." Camilla told him that today was her birthday, and she hoped he wouldn't cause trouble here. As a result, Yeltsin was very dissatisfied. Camilla stared blankly at the person in front of her. She felt that men really do look most handsome in formal wear. Camilla sincerely praised that the clothes suited him very well. Yeltsin blushed a little. Camilla asked why the Duke hadn't come. It turned out he was busy. He said he came on the Duke's behalf. The way he said it, it was as if he wouldn't have come if the Duke hadn't. Yeltsin was rummaging for something. It turned out to be the Duke's gift for her. Camilla opened it and saw it was a beautiful crown. Camilla asked Yeltsin to thank him on her behalf. He was very puzzled. "Do you even need to say that?" Camilla sighed and thought she'd better say it herself. Afterward, they planned to go inside. Before entering, Camilla reminded him to be careful. After Camilla went in, she felt something was strange. The venue was very quiet. There was some commotion up ahead. Camilla wondered if something had happened. Suddenly, Camilla froze. A person appeared in front of her. It was Rania. There were many people at the venue. She said she heard today was her birthday. She wished Camilla a happy birthday and also apologized to her. She didn't know it was Camilla's birthday, so she couldn't prepare a gift. The faces of the people present didn't look too good. The Duke asked the person before him, "Your name is Rania, is that right?" He looked at Rania's bracelet in shock. Rania replied to his question about her sudden visit. "I must have startled you. I'm very sorry, Father." Her Her words caused everyone present to start murmuring. Camilla, composed, called Rania's name. She told her they should talk somewhere else. The scene was a bit chaotic now. Rania was very surprised. She acted very helpless. "I've ruined the atmosphere," she said, apologizing to Camilla. Camilla glanced at the butler. She told him to take Rania to the reception room. They left, but the scene erupted into chaos. Everyone was suspicious of Rania's identity. Camilla just wore a smile, thinking that since things had come to this, her birthday was definitely ruined. Lappy asked his father what on earth was going on. Why did he have another daughter? In truth, the Duke was also very confused right now. Camilla told Lappy to sit down and have some tea. Lappy was in no mood for tea right now. He was very agitated. But right now, the one who should be the most speechless and angry wasn't him. Lappy sat down, dejected. The Duke began to question Camilla. She had met Rania at the orphanage and also knew about the Duchess. The Duke was very surprised, not expecting Camilla to know so much. Based on these things, Camilla came to a conclusion. Anna, the former Duchess, did not die in an accident. Anna was the former Duchess, and also Ludwig's mother. And if what Rania said was true, then she must also be Rania's biological mother. The late Duchess had a daughter. She appeared wearing the one-of-a-kind bracelet that the Duchess used to wear. Also, when she mentioned the bracelet, Dalen's reaction was not normal. In her 40s, if the Duchess were alive, she would be around that age. In fact, the Duchess did not die. If that weren't the case, the current situation couldn't be explained. Lappy felt that Camilla was talking nonsense. He believed the Duchess was already dead. However, the Duke said, "I'm sorry to them." He admitted that Camilla's theory was correct. The former Duchess, Anna, was not the daughter of a noble family. She was a wanderer with no fixed abode, but with her outstanding martial skills and appearance. She made Duke Salb fall in love with her at first sight, although many people opposed this marriage. But Duke Salb, who was deeply in love with Anna, went ahead and married her. Contrary to people's worries, the Duke and Anna formed a happy family. But that happiness didn't last long. When Ludwig was just 5 years old, she left only a short note and then disappeared. The Duke searched for her for a long time, but there were never any clues. She vanished without a trace, as if she had never existed in the first place. In the end, he could only announce to the public that she had died, because he couldn't say that the Duchess had run away from home. Not only would people curse her as a duchess who abandoned her husband and son, but it would also be a great harm to Ludwig. As time went by, he had decided to forget every little thing about Anna. Now, a daughter has suddenly appeared. If it's true, that means Anna was pregnant when she ran away from home. Until now, he had always wondered if Anna had some unavoidable reason. But now, he really couldn't understand this. He could only talk to Rania first. Camilla secretly glanced at Ludwig, wondering if he was okay. This matter must have been as big a blow to him as it was to the Duke. Hadn't he always thought his mother was dead? Camilla continued to observe his condition. As a result, at this moment, he handed over a gift. It was Camilla's birthday present. He still had the mind to give her a gift at a time like this. Camilla didn't know what he was thinking. Rania answered. Her mother passed away from a fever 2 years ago. Her mother had never mentioned anything about her father to her. But not long ago, she found a letter left by her mother. She handed this to the Duke. It said that she had no choice and that she knew the pain she had caused them. If Rania went to find him, it meant she was no longer in this world. She knew she was being shameless, but she begged him not to drive away Rania, who was now all alone. She replied that she couldn't believe it either, as she had always thought her father died when she was very young. The bracelet was a gift from her mother. The Duke was still not used to her calling him father and asked her not to address him that way for now. The Duke fell into deep thought. He had searched for her for so long, only to be met with the news of her death. Rania was indeed his daughter, as there was plenty of evidence to prove it, but he couldn't easily accept it. Yet he couldn't just ignore her either. Too many people knew her identity now, so the matter could no longer be resolved quietly. The Duke told the butler to prepare a room for her. Rania was very happy. She quickly thanked him, starting to say father, but then correcting herself to Duke. At the academy, Layla worriedly asked about Camilla's situation. Camilla looked at Layla with a puzzled expression as she hesitated to speak. Actually, Camilla knew what Layla was worried about, but she had heard too many of the same questions today. Layla had heard from others, but the Duke's biological daughter had returned. Some people even pretended to be concerned about Camilla, asking if she would be kicked out. With the appearance of Duke Salb's biological daughter, everyone must think her position has become ridiculous. The situation should have been very difficult, but why was her heart so calm? Was it really a big deal? Even she herself couldn't understand it. This was clearly a big deal, because one misstep and the real young lady of the Duke's house could take everything, and she would be driven out of the house in disgrace. The word take really felt uncomfortable, and Rania would be living in the Duke's mansion. Layla was very dejected. She told Camilla that this was a time when she should eat something sweet. As she spoke, she placed delicious food on Camilla's desk. Camilla smiled, but in reality, she was fine. However, Layla could clearly see Camilla's mood improving. Layla said she would bring more food for Camilla tomorrow, but it was really delicious. Camilla decided to make a fruit pie for her father today. As soon as Camilla entered the kitchen, she found it was very lively. Rania was here. She was actually chatting with him here. Rania said she used to work in a restaurant because she had to earn her own money after her mother passed away. Hearing Rania say she was very good at washing dishes, the people beside her felt heartbroken. Moreover, she heard that Camilla makes snacks for her father every night. But now, she wanted to do it herself, to let her father taste her cooking. She also said that since Camilla doesn't have biological parents, she might not be able to understand. She also said that to children, parents are that kind of existence. Her words made Camilla very uncomfortable. Camilla suspected. Was she the only one who found Rania's words grating? Camilla told her to do as she pleased. Then she instructed the head chef to tell her what the Duke liked. Then Camilla left happily, leaving them there. As Camilla turned away, Rania dropped her innocent expression, her face turning gloomy. Waking up in the morning, Lappy felt his neck was sore, probably from reading too late. Looking at Lappy, ever since the last hunting competition, he had clearly become more obsessed with studying magic. But it didn't seem like he was wasting his efforts out of guilt, so she didn't interfere, just told him to get more sleep. Lappy said it was because Rania was also here. Camilla asked, so what? Seeing Camilla's confused look, Lappy didn't want to say any more. Although he didn't say anything, Camilla knew he was concerned about her. At this moment, they also happened to see Ludwig. He was coming over too. After pushing the door open, they were a little surprised. Rania was sitting in Camilla's seat. She told them to come quickly. Lappy was very angry. He asked why she was sitting there. Ludwig also told her to get up, because that seat belonged to Camilla. She quickly stood up and apologized to them. However, Camilla just helped her back to the seat, saying it was all right and telling her to sit there. The two were very dissatisfied with Camilla's action. Camilla just said that it was the same no matter where she Saturday father is coming. Let's not cause any unnecessary commotion. Rania wanted to say something more, but Camilla just told her to enjoy her meal. Camilla looked at her and fell into a memory. Not long ago, Petro had told her that he had clearly heard it. What her maid had told her not long ago. The maid had told her that this was Camilla's seat. The maid had clearly arranged a seat for her, but she sent the maid away and sat in Camilla's seat. Then she pretended not to know anything. Camilla looked at her with a smile. She roughly guessed what kind of scene Rania wanted to create. A crying, apologetic Rania with her brother Lappy. And Ludwig and Camilla. If others or their father saw this scene, what would they think? Then she would become the wicked woman who bullied the Duke's new daughter over a mere seat. After all, rumors always start from such small things. But this was by no means a coincidence. From the day of her birthday party until now, the timing was too perfect. It was as if she wanted Camilla to slap her in public. She kept provoking Camilla. Simply put, she was doing this, presumably to reclaim her own place. After all, Camilla had taken everything that originally belonged to her. It was normal for her to resent Camilla, and she finally understood her own discomfort upon hearing the word take. It was because she had never thought of this position as hers. She didn't own it, so there was no need to worry about it being taken away. She had no greed for this position. If Rania wanted it, she had originally planned to quietly give it to her. But now she had changed her mind, to compete with Camilla in acting, trying to frame her with that kind of clumsy acting. Then let's see who the final winner will be. In any case, Rania was the one who provoked her first. She was telling the maids she wanted to help them with their work. Camilla watched silently from behind, perhaps because seeing Rania's skilled and familiar way of doing menial chores was a bit heartbreaking. The servants of the ducal household quickly opened up to her. If she did that, they would surely mock her for her humble origins. Gino felt it was strange. The reason Camilla asked about twins before was because of her. There was actually a ghost that looked exactly like a human. But even twins wouldn't look this identical. And that ghost had no consciousness. It didn't react at all when people spoke to it. To the female protagonist, he was someone she had never seen before. Could he be a person who only appeared after Camilla's death? Or did he appear earlier in this life? The female protagonist was about to go out, but was discovered by Rania. She wanted the female protagonist to take her along. Seeing Rania's dejected look, the female protagonist told her that if she had nothing to do, she could go see father. At this time, he would usually be taking a walk in the Gypsophila courtyard. Then the female protagonist left. Wearing a cloak, she arrived at a certain place. Before her was the representative of the Magic Stone Guild, Chris Moreau. The female protagonist took off her cloak. She considered whether to ask Lappy to cast a cooling spell on her. Chris said that the product the female protagonist designed last time was selling like hotcakes. As the Magic Stone business conducted by Duke Cepheid David grew larger and larger, he made a suggestion to me. That was to form a merchant guild that only sells magic stones, and then have him run it personally. And just like that, the Magic Stone Guild has been open for 2 months. Publicly, Chris has become the guild's representative in my place. Chris handed the female protagonist this week's sales report, as expected of someone introduced by Duke Cepheid. Truly outstanding. The female protagonist showed him the new equipment and designs. Chris took a look. It turned out to be equipment that changes eye and hair color. The female protagonist said that in the future, the hair dyeing industry would disappear without a trace. The female protagonist decided to start with her area of expertise, using gems to create beauty products, as well as the hair color-changing equipment developed this time. The female protagonist suggested that besides the basic colors, it would be great to accept custom orders for other colors if customers need them. However, Chris said that many eyes were on them recently, although Duke Cepheid was still acting as their shield. But they had, after all, branched off in the Duke's business, so people were definitely paying close attention. It seems I'll have to be more careful in the future, the female protagonist thought. Just setting up the office underground isn't enough. Chris admitted that the business was growing faster than expected. At this rate, it would be impossible to hide it in the end. Actually, the female protagonist knew that having Chris pretend to be the owner in her place was not a long-term solution after all. Currently, everything required her personal inspection and approval. So, coming here every single day was a bit difficult. Suddenly, Chris asked, "Are we really going to use this name for the guild?" The female protagonist replied, "Isn't the Ghost Merchant Guild good?" Chris felt that this name would make it difficult to gain the public's trust. Currently, many people were already laughing, saying their guild would likely disappear like a ghost. Actually, they weren't wrong. The business developing so well made her a little flustered, but this was all started to save up funds for her escape. After escaping the label of death, she had also thought that maybe it wouldn't be bad to stay in the Duke's mansion. But now, the Duke's biological daughter has appeared, so there was no need for her to stay anymore. In the office, Lappy heard that the female protagonist had gone out again. The butler reported, yes. Lappy thought, in the past, she wouldn't go out even when I asked her to. Is she going out now because of Rania? He thought, I wonder if that foolish girl is worrying all by herself. Besides father, she never takes care of anyone. She must have come here for some other reason. It turned out Camilla had asked him to come over. The butler relayed the female protagonist's message, imitating her, this fellow. Now go get some fresh air. Lappy was speechless. Is it necessary to imitate her so perfectly? Besides, he's not a child anymore. The butler was about to prepare some food for him. That evening, the female protagonist looked at the Duke and asked, "Father, were you looking for me?" The Duke said he had something to give her. It was a gift for her. The female protagonist opened it and saw it was a magic stone necklace. The Duke said it was a recent trend. At this moment, the female protagonist tried hard to manage her expression, and it said that every girl has a necklace like this. The Duke was a bit dejected giving it to the female protagonist, afraid she wouldn't like it. But the female protagonist said she just felt the gift was too precious. The female protagonist put on and said she liked it. The Duke apologized to the female protagonist, saying, "I don't know what's been going on lately. Things that would make you unhappy keep happening." The female protagonist looked at the Duke. Ever since Rania came to this house, father seemed very concerned about her mood, and this necklace was probably bought to cheer her up. Actually, to be honest, the female protagonist was in a very good mood right now, although she wasn't sure about Rania's objective. But what she could be sure of was that Rania wanted to drive her out. Rania wanted to portray herself as the kind, pitiful biological daughter, making the female protagonist into the vicious adopted daughter who bullies her. But because of that, father seemed to dote on her even more. Since it had already started, the female protagonist planned to continue the act. She pretended to hesitate and asked the Duke, "Shouldn't a gift like this be given to Rania?" She said pitifully, "Rania is also in the mansion. How could I dare to accept it?" These words successfully aroused the Duke's concern for her. The Duke said she didn't need to worry about these things. The female protagonist continued to act pitiful, making the Duke care about her even more. The female protagonist thought, if Rania insists on pestering her, then she definitely can't fall alone. When the time comes, the female protagonist plans to drag her down with her. The Duke said, "That merchant guild's name is a bit strange." The Duke said, "It's actually called the Ghost Merchant Guild. That fellow seems to have handed the guild over to a strange person." The female protagonist was speechless. What's so strange about that name? Only the Duke was being suspicious. The female protagonist felt she had to tell father soon. The fact that she was the guild's owner could not be hidden for much longer. The mining output of magic stones was getting larger and larger. Under these circumstances, it would be difficult for Duke Cepheid to hide it from Duke Solb in the eyes of the Black Shadow. Unknowingly, Duke Cepheid had helped her so much. Whether it was evolving the magic stones or choosing a new office location, most importantly, he even kept her secret. The female protagonist thought, "It seems I'll have to visit him soon." At night, Lappy was walking down the corridor and ran into Rania. She greeted Lappy enthusiastically. Although Lappy had no reason to hate her, he didn't want to get too close to her either. So he didn't respond and just walked past her. But at that moment, he heard a scream from behind him. It turned out her book had fallen. Isn't that the book written by the magician who became famous on the continent a long time ago? Lappy had been searching for it all this time, but his efforts were in vain. Lappy took the initiative to greet her and ask about the magic book. Lappy asked her if she could use magic. Rania said she could a little. Currently, she's at the novice stage, specializing only in healing. Lappy thought, but how did I not notice? But the faint magic power on Rania? It was probably because he had never looked at Rania properly. Rania saw that Lappy was interested in the book and offered to lend it to him. She happily replied to Lappy that it was no problem. Lappy thanked her. Then he left. Watching his departing figure, Rania revealed a smile. Duke Cepheid looked at the person before him and asked, "Is there something you need?" The female protagonist was just trying to prove that she still had some conscience. The Duke was puzzled. What conscience? The female protagonist put down the dessert. "I made these myself, but I want to share them with others. No one in their family likes to eat sweets, except Yale-Sien, who seems to like them." The female protagonist said, "Although he's very picky, he ate everything I made." The Duke asked in surprise, "He ate all the desserts you made?" The female protagonist heard the Duke say that he had always avoided such things, even detesting them more than he did. The female protagonist couldn't believe he was talking about Yale-Sien. The female protagonist didn't understand why he would eat the desserts she made. Duke Cepheid continued, "Petro and Lud. That Vic also don't really like sweets." The female protagonist was very surprised. Ludwig doesn't like sweets either, but they always finish all the desserts I make. Are we talking about the same people? The female protagonist thought, seriously, if you don't like it, just say so. Why force yourself to eat it? When the female protagonist got home, she knocked on Ludwig's door. At that moment, he had just come out of the shower. The female protagonist pushed a food cart and came in. He looked at the female protagonist with a puzzled expression. He saw the female protagonist holding a chocolate cake. She asked him if it looked delicious. Inside was a ton of chocolate sauce prepared by the female protagonist. There was also a sweet milkshake. Looking at his expression, the female protagonist thought, he really doesn't like sweets. The female protagonist thought, could it be that when he ate sweets before, it was to get rid of something he disliked quickly? The female protagonist looked at him and said, "Hurry up and eat." Finally, the female protagonist sighed and swapped it for pudding. This was a pudding the female protagonist made with black tea. It's not very sweet and has a slight bitterness. It's quite good. Seeing his confused look, the female protagonist asked if he wanted the cake. He immediately snatched the pudding. The female protagonist thought, the taste is actually not bad. I can only eat one piece, though. At this moment, Rania came over carrying a dessert. She said in a green tea manner that she didn't know the female protagonist was here and only prepared a portion for Ludwig. Petro exposed her. She clearly knew the female protagonist was here. Rania said to the female protagonist, "I've been learning magic with Lappy recently. I think Lappy is very kind. It would be great if you could join us too." Hearing her say Lappy was kind, the female protagonist laughed awkwardly. Is Rania trying to make her jealous now? Lappy asked her what she was here for. Rania said she had prepared dessert for him and even got help from Gerard. The female protagonist silently got up, intending to leave. But the female protagonist just didn't want to give way to her obediently. She didn't want to ruin his relationship with his family. Besides, Ludwig is her biological brother, after all. How could he not care when blood is thicker than water? In the end, Ludwig got up to see the female protagonist out. This stunned the female protagonist. Rania couldn't even hold him back. She only heard Ludwig say, "That won't be necessary. You don't need to bring these for me in the future. Besides, the female protagonist will make them for me." This made Rania very upset. That day, Rania went back. Lord Solaski asked about her situation, and she had received a message from Divine Official Daniel. Then, Rania, who had arrived, opened the door and went in. Before her was Divine Official Daniel. He smiled at Rania. "You haven't been kicked out yet. That's great." Rania replied, "Of course." His gaze shifted as he asked, "The progress is slower than expected." Rania was just about to defend herself. Divine Official Daniel's expression became even more terrifying. Rania looked very afraid of the person before her. He said Rania's role was very important. Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. He actually said, "Entrusting this body to you means our expectations for you are very high." Rania expressed that she would keep it in mind. He said Duke Salb is very cautious. He still hasn't officially acknowledged her as his daughter. They have to get everything done before the divine beast fully awakens. This is the only chance to plant their personnel inside, not the Guardian family. But Rania needs an opportunity. Daniel will create the opportunity, and their superior, Lord Alvetro, has high expectations for her. This terrified Rania. Rania said she would keep in mind. Then she applied for some magic books from the academy. Having dealt with the easiest person, she came to the campus. Rania looked very happy. People on campus saw her and started gossiping. Because of what happened at the party, many people recognized her. The female protagonist explained, "This is the magic department building." Just as she was about to leave, she ran into Yale Sien. He asked the female protagonist what she was doing here. The female protagonist almost forgot that Yale Sien also seemed to be in the magic department. This guy is truly an all-rounder. At this moment, he thought the female protagonist had come to see him. When he heard her denial, his expression changed. The female protagonist explained to him that she was just sending Rania off and was about to leave. Rania greeted him, but Yeltsin didn't answer. He asked the female protagonist, "Are you going back now?" He inadvertently saw that the female protagonist's hand was injured. It turned out that just now, when Rania was filling out the admission application, she had accidentally scratched her with a pen. He told the female protagonist to hold out her hand. She felt it was just a small injury and didn't need it. "You'll get tired if you use a healing spell. Besides, it will heal in a couple of days, so there's no need to use magic." But he still took the female protagonist's hand and said, "An injury like this is nothing." Looking at the healed wound, the female protagonist still felt it was magical. She said, "That's really nice." The female protagonist was leaving. Only the two of them were left. Rania wanted Yeltsin to see her off, but he told Rania to be quiet. He found her chattering annoying. He turned around and left directly, looking very irritated. Before leaving, he didn't forget to warn Rania not to call his name casually. She was just about to apologize when he cut her off. He also threatened Rania, "Be glad you live with Camilla. Otherwise, I would have torn off one of your arms long ago." Then he left. Duke's mansion. The female protagonist had a club activity and would be back late. During the hunting tournament, she displayed astonishing swordsmanship skills. He had thought that after Ludwig, another swordsmanship genius was about to appear. But she said she wasn't interested in swordsmanship and gave up learning it. After that, she actually joined a charity club. She could always shock the Duke. He thought the female protagonist was just playing around out of boredom. But unexpectedly, she sorted out everything in the warehouse and donated it all. He told the butler to provide unconditional support for anything she needed. Looking at Rania, he asked, "Are you keeping up with your classes?" She replied that they were very interesting. Although the Duke felt apologetic looking at her, being with her was also very awkward. Although he didn't doubt her origins, every time she called him father, he would feel an inexplicable chill. He thought it was probably because they weren't familiar with each other yet. It should gradually get better with time. However, Rania was thinking, soon he will have no choice but to admit that I am his biological daughter. The female protagonist asked, "Your Grace, about the outing to West Valley. Layla promised the children we would go play in the water." The female protagonist felt that her charity work was only targeted at children. It might be because she came from an orphanage. For the female protagonist, as long as she could get enough class hours, it was fine. But Petro suddenly appeared. He had already prepared everything. Not only had he prepared all kinds of delicious food, but he had also arranged for security personnel. It turned out they just had to go with him. The female protagonist thought, this guy's been so stressful lately. And why was Layla looking at them with such a gratified expression? Layla suggested, "Let's set off now. We should get going." The female protagonist glanced to the side. She didn't expect Yeltsin to be going too. The female protagonist saw his unhappy expression and quickly tried to coax him, thinking, why does he always use such a murderous tone to question me? Hearing the female protagonist praise Petro, he would get angry for no reason. By the small river, the female protagonist said with a speechless expression. Whose idea was this? Layla hurriedly took credit, saying it was her idea. The water was very clear and the sunlight was nice. It was indeed very suitable for children to play in. But in a place like this, the female protagonist saw many water ghosts. Can we really let the children play here? Water ghosts have stronger resentment than other ghosts and love to play pranks. If it were any other time, she would definitely pretend not to see them. But there were children here, after all. The female protagonist asked Daylin and Gino to handle it. Other ghosts would run away upon seeing us. But this water ghost actually wouldn't leave her alone, loudly proclaiming that this was its territory. The female protagonist told it to be quiet. It was curious why the female protagonist could see it. The female protagonist threatened it, saying she knew the god of death and would call him over if it kept making noise. The female protagonist was just worried that it would play pranks on the children. That human over there dressed in black. He can see ghosts just like me, but he has a violent temper. If a ghost is discovered by him, it will probably be eliminated immediately. As long as you stay put, I'll let you go in the end. The ghost nodded hurriedly. The female protagonist then let it go. Yeltsin asked, "What's the situation? Can you let it go?" The female protagonist replied, "Daylin and Gino promised me they would monitor them, so it should be fine." The children wanted to play in the water. They were having a great time playing. Yeltsin asked the female protagonist why she wasn't playing. The female protagonist said she didn't like water. As soon as she finished speaking, she was splashed with cold water. Two children asked the female protagonist to play with them. The female protagonist was very angry. She said to the children, "You're so dead." Yeltsin saw this and was quite moved. "And you said you didn't like it." Looks to me like the female protagonist is having a blast. Now the female protagonist was like a drowned rat. The female protagonist vehemently retorted. Yeltsin replied perfunctorily, I know. Then he reached out his hand, and the female protagonist's body dried in an instant. The female protagonist thought, bringing this guy along is so useful. He saw the female protagonist going all out against the children. But in a game, there's no distinction between children and adults. However, in the end, the female protagonist was utterly defeated. He smiled as he looked at the female protagonist and straightened her hair for her. The female protagonist also realized how messy her hair was. The children were very happy. They had won. The female protagonist's hand was grabbed. A little boy asked the female protagonist to be on his team next time. This was a different kind of feeling. Her mood was strangely wonderful. The female protagonist thought, this feeling isn't bad, is it? At this moment, Petro rushed over. But wasn't he supposed to be at the Duke's mansion? Petro shouted that something had happened at the Duke's mansion. The female protagonist heard that His Grace the Duke had fainted.